then all at once. In New York's Hamptons, a stilt house long seen as a symbol of strength and endurance.
Crazy. It's a huge hill. What?
Across the United States.
Hey,
Bobo.
Hey, guys.
Then all at once. In New York's Hamptons, a stilt house long seen as a symbol of strength and endurance finally gave way, unable to withstand relentless cold and a series of back-to-back storms. As foundations failed on the shoreline, the sky responded inland. In Phoenix, residents watched in disbelief as a sudden ring of light appeared overhead, followed by a glowing pillar forming in full view of the city. Meanwhile, California has not found rest. Entire regions have endured weeks of serious, continuous earthquakes, persistent shaking that refuses to settle. Above it all, blood-red moons rose during moments of national tension, marking time with unsettling precision. Are these just random tragedies or warnings spoken by Jesus before his return? Before we go further, leave a prayer in the comments, just a way to hold on to your faith. Along the frozen edge of Gardner's Bay, something more than a house was lost this winter. The Lazy Point Stilt House, a familiar silhouette in the Hamptons for more than 70 years, finally collapsed into the icy water after weeks of relentless cold, violent surf, and repeated winter storms. It had endured nor'easters, towering waves, and decades of seasonal abuse. Many believed it was permanent. This winter proved otherwise. The local photographer who had
welcome back, Ross.
said it held on as long as it could, surviving by a thread. No one knows with certainty who owned it. The structure stood without clear stewardship, watched by many but guarded by none. That detail has only deepened its symbolism, a landmark without an owner, a foundation without protection. The images spread quickly online. A structure once suspended above the sea now sat broken and half submerged.
So I took all the rangers off everyone because people were intimidated. They didn't want to join the chat. So that's why all the guys are ranchless. But you actually post links, so I'll leave yours up there. Because Di's up there as well because she posts links.
Surrounded by ice and dark water. For many residents, the site felt deeply personal. Comments beneath the photos spoke of sadness, nostalgia, and loss. Some wrote prayers, others described it as a warning, but just as many scrolled past without pause, dismissing it as coastal erosion, nothing more. What made the collapse unsettling was not how dramatic it looked, but how quietly it happened. There was no single storm to blame, no final udar. Years of freezing and thawing weakened the stilts slowly, invisibly, until they could no longer hold. The house did not fall because the ocean suddenly became violent, but because pressure never stopped. The damage was already done long before it became visible. Scripture speaks with uncomfortable clarity to moments like this.
Yeah,
Jesus warned
Diane's
that
a
a house
queen.
built on sand would fall when storms came. Not because
Bobo, I took the wrenches, hoping everyone will get on okay. So if you don't get on, please don't time him out. Just block him, and you can only see what you say and not him.
are unusual, but because the foundation was weak.
And when I say him, you know who I mean.
Hebrews declares that what can be shaken will be shaken, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. This collapse has stirred reflection in some hearts and indifference in others. While a few turn to prayer, many no longer see meaning in signs at all. Hearts have grown hardened, faith has thinned. What once prompted repentance now barely slows the scroll. The winter itself has been unforgiving. Ice flows, massive waves, and repeated storms battered the coast, stripping away the illusion of permanence. Things thought eternal proved temporary. Structures thought unmovable were not. This was not just the loss of a house, it was exposure.
We've got bushfires and floods all over the eastern side of Australia. All the east is under fire or underwater.
A reminder that erosion reveals what time has already weakened, that collapse often comes quietly, and that when foundations fail, physical or spiritual, it is rarely without warning. If this moment gives you pause, share your thoughts below and consider subscribing. These signs do not demand fear, but discernment. In the early hours before dawn, residents of Phoenix stepped outside and looked up at a
I'm going to say, Vas, I did miss you, mate.
sky that no longer behaved like sky. Hovering above the city skyline was a massive circular ring of pale golden light. It did not rotate, it did not flicker, it did not drift with the desert wind. It remained perfectly still, sharply defined, as if fixed to an unseen point above the earth. Witnesses said the edges looked precise, not scattered like reflections or aircraft glare, but formed intentional. Moments later, a second formation appeared. Behind the ring, a blue-white spiral began to expand outward with flawless symmetry. It did not shimmer like an
Spirals or portals.
aurora or dissolve like clouds. It unfolded slowly, layer by layer, as though something was opening rather than forming. Several residents described it as constructed, not natural, like a mechanism revealing itself. Then came the sound. A deep, metallic hum rolled across the city. It was not thunder, not aircraft, not machinery. Many said it was felt in the chest before it was heard. Some compared it to distant trumpets, muted by wind. Others said it felt like a heavy door being unsealed above them. As the spiral reached its widest point, a vertical pillar of glowing, cloud-like light descended from the center of the ring toward the city. Despite strong gusts, reported
Something just entered the portal. That's a portal, that spiral cloud.
at ground level, the pillar remained rigid and upright. Cars slowed and then came to a full stop as drivers stepped out, looking upward in silence, unsure of what they were witnessing. Neighbors gathered outside their homes without speaking, drawn together by the same unexplainable sight above them. Videos of the event began spreading rapidly online, capturing not only the light in the sky but the reactions on the ground. Some residents were heard praying aloud, their voices steady but urgent, while others openly wept, overwhelmed by what they felt but could not name. Authorities later labeled the event an optical anomaly,
Yeah.
yet no storm, rocket launch, military exercise, or weather pattern matched its timing.
Thanks,
or
Vas.
sound. What unsettled many most was not the light itself, but the absence of chaos.
It's better when you guys give a link I can watch.
Everything appeared measured, controlled, purposeful. Scripture presses heavily here. Exodus speaks of the Lord leading his people by a pillar of cloud. Genesis describes a connection between heaven and earth, appointed, not random. Amos warns of a famine, not of bread, but of hearing the word of the Lord. So the question remains, did the sky open to warn of judgment, or to reveal what becomes visible when faith has grown thin enough for heaven to be seen through it? For more than 2 consecutive weeks, the San Francisco Bay Area has endured a relentless earthquake swarm. This has not been one dramatic rupture followed by silence, but hundreds of tremors rolling beneath neighborhoods day and night,
Wow, I never knew that.
giving residents no sense of closure. Each jolt may appear minor on its own, yet together they form a constant pressure that refuses to release. These quakes are not scattered. Scientists confirm they trace a linear pattern cutting through mountains and urban corridors, quietly linking fault segments once believed to be separate. In San Ramon, Oakland, and the East Bay Hills, residents describe repeated shaking beneath homes, schools, and hospitals. Picture frames slide, dishes rattle, beds tremble in the middle of the night. Many families now sleep lightly, some fully dressed, uncertain whether the next jolt will be the one that brings walls down. Seismologists say the swarm is concentrated near the northern end of the Calaveras Fault, directly linked to the West Napa Fault, which released major energy in 2014. That release did not remove danger. It shifted it, transferring stress onto fault segments that have not broken in over a century.
Hey, Talia, good to see
GPS
ya.
stations now show measurable ground movement millimeters at a time, too small to see, but large enough to confirm that the land is actively adjusting beneath nearly 7 million people. The earth is not calm. It is redistributing pressure like a tightening web under entire cities. What frightens residents most is not a single violent quake, but the persistence. Windows tremble without warning. Low rumbles are felt more than heard. Parents lie awake wondering if their homes will still be standing by morning. This is not panic. It is exhaustion mixed with fear. Scripture speaks clearly into moments like this. Hebrews says God will shake not only the earth but the heavens, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Isaiah describes the earth reeling under weight, not accident, but consequence. Jesus warned that earthquakes would come in various places as birth pains, growing closer together before release. The Bay Area is among the most advanced regions on Earth, yet spiritually divided. Only a small fraction of households are insured.
We know we're expecting earthquakes, but then they have hundreds a day, hundreds of earthquakes a day. Surely the big one's not far behind it.
Most assume stability will last because it always has. That assumption mirrors a deeper complacency. Just as faults store pressure silently, faith has eroded quietly. Collapse rarely begins with ruins. It begins with prolonged shaking ignored. So, is the ground
G'day, Andy.
beneath
Good to see you,
America
mate.
shifting only because of geology, or because a land built on weakened foundations can no longer stand firm? Stay with me, because when the earth murmurs without stopping, Scripture warns that the silence before release is rarely long. In Washington, D.C., a sequence of deep red moons appeared without warning, rising quietly during moments when the nation was already under visible strain. These were not casual night sky events noticed only by astronomers. Ordinary people stopped what they were doing and looked up, unsettled by the color and the timing. The moon did not glow softly. It darkened, turning a heavy shade of red that held steady against a silent sky. Scientists were quick to respond. They spoke of lunar eclipses, atmospheric dust, wildfire particles, and light refraction bending through Earth's shadow. These explanations described how the moon can turn red. They did not explain why it appeared with such precision, returning again and again at moments when the nation stood at crossroads. Even some astronomers admitted the alignment was unusual. Predictable on charts, yes, but unsettling in context. What struck witnesses most was not fear, but stillness. Crowds gathered silently along the National Mall. Some people knelt. Others clasped hands and prayed, asking that whatever was coming might pass, that judgment would pause, that mercy would speak louder than consequence. The sky did not answer. It only watched. Scripture has long-framed moments like this. Joel 2:31 warns that the sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes. The verse does not say after, it says before. In the Bible, blood moons are not disasters themselves. They are timestamps, signals that a threshold is near. Jesus echoed this warning in Luke 21, saying there would
And Trump was born in a blood moon. That's pretty interesting.
be signs in the sun, moon, and stars during times of distress among nations. Not random beauty, not spectacle, signs. Markers placed in the sky when earthly systems strain under weight they can no longer carry. Washington is built to measure time, terms, sessions, cycles, deadlines. But when the sky becomes the clock, human schedules stop mattering. The question shifts from what will happen next to are we ready for the hour being marked? When the sky becomes a clock, what hour is it marking? Stay with me, because when the moon turns red over the nation's capital, Scripture warns that the countdown has already begun. Along the St. Louis and Memphis stretches of the Mississippi River, residents awoke to a sight that felt immediately wrong.
Okay, guys, I'll switch to the ET one. Phil sent this yesterday on the chat, and he said it's really good to watch, but it goes to an hour, no, 2.5 hours. So we'll see how it goes. Which one was it?
Go and buy all of these books unless you, because orders are orders, and because some part of me was too curious. I asked a captured alien why feared the name of Jesus. What he said about heaven and hell shook me. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something for me. Comment right now where you're listening to this. Your bedroom, your car.
I never saw Italia. All I know is he's in hot water. Starmer in England, he's in hot water.
Walking your dog, doesn't matter. Just tell me, because if this recording disappears tomorrow, if I disappear tomorrow, I need to know that someone somewhere heard this before they erased me. I'm serious. Do it now. I'll wait. Okay. My name is Staff Sergeant Michael Brennan. Mike to anyone who isn't trying to chew me out. I'm 34 years old, been in the Air Force for 12 years, specialized in linguistic interrogation, which is a fancy way of saying I make people talk when they don't want to. I was stationed at Fort Meade in Maryland, living alone in a crappy apartment that smelled like the previous tenant's cigarette habit. And honestly, I was just going through the motions. My wife Sarah died 3 years ago in a car accident. Some drunk driver ran a red light, and after that, I stopped believing in a lot of things. God, justice, the idea that good people are protected, all of it. I went to Mass every Sunday as a kid in Texas, altar boy and everything. But after Sarah, I couldn't even walk past a church without feeling angry. So when what I'm about to tell you happened, you need to understand, I was the last person who would have believed any of it. The call came at 2:47 a.m. on March 15th, 2024. I know the exact time because I was staring at my ceiling, wide awake like usual, watching the numbers on my alarm clock flip over. Insomnia had been my roommate since Sarah died. When my phone rang with that specific ringtone, the one that means it's not a wrong...
Okay, Diane, I'm sorry you're leaving for the night. You don't have to, you know. Look, guys, no bagging each other. That's why I took the wrenches off you so you don't fight. And you're still fighting. We lose people off the channel when you fight.
number or a spam call, but actual command. My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever comes from a call at that hour. The voice on the other end didn't identify himself, didn't say hello, just said, "Staff Sergeant Brennan, you are being activated for immediate deployment. Pack for 3 days, full gear, be ready for pickup in 90 minutes. You will receive coordinates en route. This is classified top secret SCI. Acknowledge." I sat up, my mouth dry, and said, "Acknowledged." The line went dead. My hands were shaking. In 12 years of service, I'd never gotten a call like that. I threw my gear together on autopilot, muscle memory from a dozen deployments taking over while my brain tried to catch up. Combat boots, tactical pants, 3 changes of clothes, toiletries, my service weapon. I kept thinking this had to be about Iran, or maybe North Korea, some crisis that needed interrogators on the ground immediately. I'd worked with some Arabic and Korean linguists before. Maybe they needed me for backup, but something felt wrong. The voice on the phone had been weird, too controlled, like he was reading from a script and afraid to deviate even a word. And classified top secret SCI, sensitive compartmented information. That was a level above what I usually dealt with. That was the kind of classification that meant you could go to prison just for knowing it existed. I strapped on my watch, the one Sarah gave me for our anniversary, and tried not to think about the fact that I might not come back. Not that anyone would miss me if I didn't. The black SUV pulled up exactly 90 minutes later. No military markings, no government plates, just a black Suburban with windows so tinted I couldn't see inside. The driver didn't get out, just popped the trunk. I loaded my gear, climbed in the back seat, and before I could even close the door, we were moving. The driver was Air Force. I could tell by the haircut and the way he sat, but he was wearing civilian clothes. He didn't say a word. There was another guy in the passenger seat, same deal, civilian clothes, military bearing, complete silence. I tried asking where we were going. Nothing. I tried asking what this was about. Nothing. After about 20 minutes, the guy in the passenger seat turned around and handed me a black cloth hood. "Put this on," he said. "It's not optional." My heart started hammering. You don't hood friendlies. You hood prisoners. But I put it on because orders are orders, and because some part of me was too curious to refuse. Under the hood, I lost track of time. I could feel the SUV moving, hear the hum of the engine, feel turns and stops. At some point, we stopped completely, and I heard airplane engines. They walked me up a ramp, strapped me into a seat, and we were airborne. A cargo plane, from the sound of it. Maybe a C-130. I tried to count the hours, but gave up after 3. No one spoke to me the entire flight. I dozed off at some point, which probably says something about how numb I'd gotten to weird situations. And when I woke up, we were descending. After we landed, another vehicle, another silent drive, maybe 45 minutes. The desert. I could tell from the heat, even through the hood and the particular quality of the silence outside. Then we stopped. I heard a massive metal door rolling open, the sound echoing like we were entering a hangar, and someone finally pulled the hood off my head. The light was blinding at first, harsh fluorescent white that made me squint. When my eyes adjusted, I saw we were in an underground parking structure, but not like any I'd ever seen. Everything was too clean, too modern, too expensive for military. The walls were smooth concrete. The lighting was recessed and even. There were cameras in every corner with little red lights blinking. And there were a lot of men in suits, not uniforms, suits, standing around looking at me like I was a specimen. A woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and a pantsuit that probably cost more than my car walked up to me. "Staff Sergeant Brennan," she said, not offering a handshake. "I'm Dr. Elizabeth Marsh. You're going to follow me now. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not ask questions. Do not look at anything twice. If you see something you don't understand, forget it immediately. Are we clear?" I nodded. What else was I going to do? She led me through a security checkpoint that made TSA look like a joke. Retinal scan, fingerprint, full body scanner, even a quick blood draw that they said was standard protocol for this facility. Then through a series of corridors that went down, always down, deeper underground. The walls changed from concrete to something that looked almost like polished black glass, and the temperature dropped noticeably. We passed rooms with windows that were blacked out, and behind one of them, I heard something that made every hair on my body stand up. It wasn't quite a scream and wasn't quite an animal sound. It was something in between, something wrong. Dr. Marsh didn't even flinch, just kept walking in her clicking heels like she heard that kind of thing every day. Maybe she did. I realized my mouth was completely dry and my hands were clenched into fists. Whatever this place was, I just walked into something I couldn't walk out of. We stopped at a heavy steel door with a biometric lock. Dr. Marsh put her hand on the scanner, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe, or apology. "Staff Sergeant, what I'm about to show you is going to challenge everything you think you know about reality," she said. "You were selected because your psychological profile suggests you can handle extreme cognitive dissonance without breaking. You've also been through enough personal trauma that you're unlikely to crack under additional stress. And according to your file, you don't believe in God anymore, which frankly makes you safer for this assignment than someone with strong religious convictions." She paused. "When you walk through this door, your life divides into before and after. There's no going back to before. Do you understand?" I didn't, not really, but I said yes anyway. She pressed her palm to the door again. It hissed open, and she gestured for me to enter. The room was circular, maybe 40 feet across, with a domed ceiling that curved up into darkness. The walls were lined with equipment I didn't recognize, screens showing data I couldn't interpret, and at least a dozen people in white lab coats working at terminals. But all of that registered only peripherally, because my brain was trying to process what was in the center of the room. There was a cylindrical field of shimmering energy, about 12 feet tall and 6 feet wide, and inside that field, suspended a few feet off the ground, was something that my mind absolutely refused to categorize. It wasn't human. It definitely wasn't human. But it was looking right at me, with eyes that held an intelligence that made me feel like an insect under a microscope. My legs almost gave out. Someone grabbed my arm to steady me, and Dr. Marsh, standing next to me, said the words that I'll remember until the day I die. "Staff Sergeant Brennan, meet Prisoner Zero. We need you to make it talk. I'm going to be straight with you. When I first saw that thing in the containment field, my brain just stopped working for a few seconds. You know how when you see something that doesn't fit into any category you understand, your mind kind of blue screens? That's what happened. I stood there, arm being held by some technician because my knees had gone weak, and I just stared. Dr. Marsh was talking to me, explaining something, but her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. All I could process was that thing, floating there, watching me with eyes that didn't blink the right way. My training was screaming at me to assess the threat, to categorize, to find the tactical advantage. But how do you do that when the threat isn't anything you've ever trained for? I think I said something really intelligent like, "What the hell is that?" And Dr. Marsh's response was even less helpful. "That's what we're trying to figure out." They led me to a side room, a briefing room with a long table, and too many serious-looking people sitting around it. Military brass, intelligence types, scientists, and a couple of people in suits who had that distinct federal agent vibe. Nobody smiled. Nobody made small talk. A two-star general whose name I didn't catch started the briefing, and I could see his hands shaking slightly as he opened the folder in front of him. "Staff Sergeant Brennan," he said, "what you're about to hear is classified at the highest possible level. You've been read into a program that officially doesn't exist. The entity you just saw has been in our custody for 7 weeks. In that time, it has spoken exactly 43 words, all of them insults or refusals to cooperate. We've tried everything: traditional interrogation, enhanced interrogation, isolation, sensory deprivation, even attempted communication through mathematical sequences. Nothing works. It speaks English, which is remarkable enough, but it refuses to tell us anything of substance. One of the scientists, a nervous guy with thick glasses who kept fidgeting with his pen, jumped in. The entity displays capabilities that violate our understanding of physics. It can manipulate electromagnetic fields with what appears to be thought alone. It doesn't eat, doesn't drink, doesn't sleep as far as we can observe. Cellular analysis is inconclusive because its cells, if you can call them that, operate on principles we don't understand. It's not carbon-based life. It's not silicon-based. It's something else entirely. He pulled up images on a screen at the end of the table. Microscope slides showing structures that looked organic but wrong. Geometry that hurt to look at. We believe it's not from Earth, obviously. But more than that, we're not sure it's from our reality in the conventional sense. Some of our theoretical physicists think it might be extra-dimensional rather than extraterrestrial. I remember thinking that was a hell of a distinction without a difference, but I kept my mouth shut. Dr. Marsh took over, her voice steady and professional in a way that suggested she'd given this briefing before. 7 weeks ago, there was an incident at a black site research facility in New Mexico. Details are still classified above your clearance, but the short version is that we were conducting experiments with high-energy particle collision, attempting to create stable micro-wormholes. Something went wrong, or right, depending on your perspective. We opened a doorway briefly for approximately 2.3 seconds. That's when it came through. She gestured toward the containment room. Along with 3 others, 2 of them died immediately upon arrival. Cellular collapse at the molecular level. The 3rd one died after 72 hours, same cause. This one adapted. It's been stable, relatively speaking, since day 4. We've designated it Prisoner Zero because we literally don't know what else to call it. The general leaned forward, and I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the kind that comes from not sleeping because nightmares are waiting. Staff Sergeant, your record shows exceptional ability in extracting information from uncooperative subjects. You have a 94% success rate. You've broken hardened terrorists, cartel enforcers, enemy combatants who were trained to resist interrogation. But more importantly, your psychological profile indicates high resilience to existential shock. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Most people who've spent more than 10 minutes in that containment room have experienced severe psychological distress, panic attacks, dissociative episodes. One technician had a complete psychotic break and had to be sedated and transferred to psychiatric care. You've experienced significant personal trauma. You've stared into the abyss already, in your own way. We're hoping that makes you less likely to break when the abyss stares back. I found my voice, finally, though it came out rougher than I intended. You're telling me that thing came from another dimension? That we opened a portal and it walked through? The scientist with the glasses nodded enthusiastically, like he was glad someone was catching on. Essentially, yes, though walked is a simplification. It exists partially in dimensions we can't perceive. What you see in that containment field is more like a 3-dimensional shadow of something much more complex. I rubbed my face with both hands. This was insane. This was absolutely insane. But I'd seen it with my own eyes. It was real, whatever it was. And you want me to interrogate it? To make it talk? Dr. Marsh nodded. We need to know why it came here, if others are coming, what it wants, what it knows about us. And most urgently, we need to know if it's hostile, or if we can establish some form of communication that doesn't end with more of our people having mental breakdowns. They gave me an hour to review what little intelligence they had. Video footage of the thing in its containment field, just floating there, occasionally moving in ways that made the camera glitch out. Audio recordings of the 43 words it had spoken, all in English with an accent I couldn't place. Something between British and something else entirely. You are primitives. Your questions bore me. Release me or do not. I am beyond your capacity to harm. Real charming stuff. There were medical reports too, but they might as well have been written in another language for all the sense they made to me. Quantum cellular structures, non-Euclidean biological geometry, multi-dimensional consciousness anchored in tertiary space. I was an interrogator, not a physicist. I dealt in human psychology, body language, social engineering.
Hey,
How the
Lynn,
hell
good
was
to
I
see
supposed to
you.
apply any of that to something that wasn't even human? But here's the thing about military training. It teaches you to compartmentalize, to put the fear and the confusion in a box and focus on the mission. So that's what I did. I went back to basics. Interrogation is about establishing rapport, finding leverage, understanding motivation. This thing spoke English, which meant it could communicate. It had refused to communicate, which meant it had reasons for refusing. Find the reasons, find the leverage. I'd done this 1,000 times with human subjects. Maybe, just maybe, the principles were universal. Dr. Marsh came to get me when the hour was up. Ready? She asked. I wasn't, not even close. But I stood up and followed her back to the containment room anyway. Someone handed me a wireless headset. Audio quality is better than shouting through the field, a technician explained. It can hear you clearly. Whether it chooses to respond is another matter. I stepped up to the containment field, close enough to feel the static electricity making the hair on my arms stand up. Up close, the thing was even more disturbing. It was vaguely humanoid, but only in the way that a stick figure is humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head-like structure. But the proportions were wrong. The limbs were too long, the joints bent in too many places, and the skin, if you could call it that, seemed to shift between textures. Sometimes smooth like metal, sometimes rough like stone, sometimes almost translucent where you could see things moving underneath that might have been organs or might have been something else. The eyes were the worst part. They were large, too large, and they didn't have whites or irises in the conventional sense. Just darkness that seemed to pull at you, like looking into a well that went down forever. And it was looking at me, really looking at me. Not at my body, but at something deeper, like it could see through my skull and into whatever was inside. I cleared my throat, adjusted the headset, and spoke. I'm Staff Sergeant Michael Brennan. I'm here to talk with you. Nothing. It just floated there, arms hanging loose, head tilted slightly like a bird examining an insect. I tried again. I understand you've been uncooperative with my colleagues. I'm hoping we can change that. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to understand. Still nothing. Not even a flicker of reaction. One of the scientists behind me whispered, "It's ignoring you. That's what it does. It'll stay silent for hours, then suddenly say something cryptic and go silent again." But I saw something the scientist didn't. The thing's head had moved, just slightly, when I said my name. It was listening. It was absolutely listening. It just didn't care. So I pulled up a chair, sat down right in front of the containment field, and stared back at it. If it wanted to play the silence game, I'd been trained by the best. I'd once sat across from a Taliban commander for 6 hours without saying a word, just maintaining eye contact, until the guy cracked and started talking just to fill the silence. Humans hate silence. It makes them uncomfortable. But I was starting to realize that whatever this thing was, it didn't operate on human psychology. It didn't seem uncomfortable.
Lynn, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take your wrench because when everyone had wrenches, we'd have people watching and no one would join. And I thought it's because I was getting intimidated by all the wrenches in the chat. So I'm going to take your wrench, no offense. And yeah, I can't help it, Lynn.
It didn't seem
You don't use it anyway. You don't post links.
anything. It was just there, existing, looking at me with those bottomless eyes. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought formed that I tried very hard to suppress. This thing is old. Really, really old. It's seen things I can't imagine, and it thinks we're nothing. Absolutely nothing. That thought should have scared me, but instead, it just made me angry. I leaned forward and said, "You know what? You're right. We probably are primitives compared to you, but you're the one in the cage, and I'm the one with the key. So maybe you're not as superior as you think." And that's when it spoke for the first time to me. Its mouth didn't move the way a human mouth should. The words seemed to form in the air itself, resonating in a frequency that I felt in my chest as much as heard with my ears. "The cage," it said, "is an illusion you need to make yourselves feel safe. I am here because I choose to be here. When I choose to leave, I will leave. Your technology cannot hold me. Your weapons cannot harm me. I am speaking to you now only because your arrogance amuses me." Every screen in the room flickered when it spoke. The lights dimmed, and I felt something in my head, a pressure, like the beginning of a migraine. Dr. Marsh's voice came through my earpiece, urgent. "Brennan, are you okay? Your vitals just spiked." But I couldn't look away from those eyes. because for the first time since Sarah died, I felt something other than numbness. I felt absolutely terrified, and somehow that made me feel alive. Let me describe this thing properly, because I need you to understand what I was dealing with. Every sci-fi movie you've ever seen, every alien design you've imagined, throw it out. This wasn't like that. The creature was roughly 7 feet tall when it stood upright, which it rarely did. Most of the time, it just floated in that containment field in a sitting position, legs crossed like it was meditating, but the legs crossed in a way that would have broken a human's hips. The body was slender, almost skeletal, but not in a malnourished way. More like it was designed with absolute efficiency. No wasted space, no unnecessary mass. The skin changed constantly. I'm not talking about color changes like a chameleon. I mean the texture itself shifted. One moment it looked like polished obsidian, smooth and reflective. The next it was rough and porous like volcanic rock. Sometimes it seemed almost translucent, and I could see things moving underneath, geometric patterns that pulsed with a light that wasn't quite light. It hurt to look at directly for too long, made my eyes water. The hands were what really got to me. 6 fingers on each hand, long and thin like spider legs, but they moved with a precision that was almost hypnotic. I watched those fingers move once, just flexing and curling, and the movement was so fluid it seemed to defy biology. No joints clicking, no hesitation, just perfect continuous motion like watching water flow. And at the tip of each finger was something that looked like a claw, but also like a tool, with edges that caught the light in ways that suggested they were sharper than anything humans had ever made. The head was proportionally too large for the body, and the face, God, the face was the worst part. It had features that suggested a face, 2 eyes, something that might have been a nose, a mouth. But they were arranged just wrong enough to trigger every uncanny valley instinct in my brain. The mouth didn't have lips, just a slit that opened wider than it should have been able to, and inside I'd glimpsed something that wasn't teeth, but wasn't not teeth either. Crystalline structures, maybe, or bone grown into geometric shapes. But those eyes, I keep coming back to the eyes because they're what I still see when I close my own. They were huge, taking up maybe a third of the face, and they didn't have whites or irises in any conventional sense. The entire eye was black, but not like ink, like space, like looking into the night sky if all the stars had been erased. And deep in that darkness, there were things moving, patterns, lights that flickered on and off in sequences that almost seemed like they meant something. When it looked at you, and I mean really looked at you, you felt it, not physically.
Man, it's not new age stuff. It just happens to be information on a UFO alien they got. It's not doing it on behalf of Christ or anything, even though that's in the title. I haven't heard it yet. But it's not from the churches.
But somewhere deeper, like it was reading something written on your soul. I'd been stared down by killers, by fanatics who wanted me dead, by people with nothing left to lose. This was different. This thing wasn't looking at me with hatred or fear or even curiosity. It was looking at me the way I might look at an ant. Mild interest at best, complete indifference at worst. I took a breath, steadied myself, and decided to start with the basics. In interrogation, you always start by establishing communication, even if it's just small talk. Make them comfortable, make them feel heard, build rapport. Do you have a name? I asked. The creature's head tilted slightly, and for a long moment, I thought it would go back to ignoring me. Then that voice came again, resonating in frequencies that made my fillings ache. Names are limitations your species uses to distinguish individuals because you cannot perceive identity in any meaningful way. I have no need for such constraints. You may call me whatever allows your limited cognition to process my existence. Great. Condescending right out of the gate. I'd dealt with arrogant subjects before. The key was not to rise to it. All right. Then I'll call you Zero, since that's what they've designated you here. Is that acceptable? A pause. Then, acceptable. Irrelevant, but acceptable. I leaned forward slightly, keeping my body language open and non-threatening. Zero, can you tell me where you came from? The creature's fingers flexed, that disturbing fluid motion that made my skin crawl. I came from where I was. I am now where I am. Your question assumes a linear progression through space that does not apply to me. I fought the urge to sigh. This was going to be difficult. Okay, let me rephrase. Before you arrived at this facility, where were you? Another long pause. The patterns in its eyes shifted, moving faster. I was adjacent. I was perpendicular. I was in the spaces between your spaces, observing, existing in dimensions your senses cannot access. You created a door, a crude, violent ripping of reality. I entered, not by choice, but because the door pulled at me with force you cannot comprehend. So perhaps you should be asking yourself where you brought me from, not where I came from. That was more words than it had given anyone else in 7 weeks. I felt a small surge of something that might have been progress. You're saying we pulled you here against your will. You didn't come here intentionally. The creature made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded like glass breaking in slow motion. Intentionally. Such a human word. You assume agency where there is only causation. Did I choose to be ripped from my existence and forced into this limited dimensional space? No. Am I displeased by this? The concept of displeasure does not adequately describe my state, but I am also curious. You are so very small, so very brief, so very convinced of your importance. It is almost endearing, like watching insects build elaborate colonies, not knowing that winter comes. I felt my jaw tighten. The condescension was thick enough to cut. I shifted tactics, trying the direct approach. Sometimes ego-driven subjects respond to challenges. You say we're small and brief, but we're the ones who opened that door. We're the ones who figured out how to tear through dimensions. That doesn't sound primitive to me. The creature went very still, and I realized that stillness was somehow worse than movement. You did not tear through dimensions through understanding. You tore through dimensions through blind violence, like a child swinging a hammer in a crystal shop. You do not understand what you did. You do not understand what could have come through instead of me. You do not understand that every moment that door was open, you invited extinction into your reality. But you are proud of this, proud of your ignorance. This is why you are primitives. The lights flickered again. Behind me, I heard Dr. Marsh whisper into her radio, asking if the containment field was stable. It was, but something in the room felt wrong, like the air pressure had changed. I decided to try empathy, another classic technique. Make them see you as human, relatable, someone they might want to talk to. I can understand why you'd see us that way. We probably seem very limited from your perspective, but we're trying to learn. That's why I'm here. Not to hurt you, not to cage you forever, but to understand. Can you help me understand? The creature's mouth opened slightly, and I saw those crystalline structures inside catch the light. You want me to help you understand? Very well. I will use small words. You are meat puppets, animated by electrical impulses in fatty tissue you call brains. You exist for a breath, a blink, and then you stop. You think you are aware because you can form symbols and communicate them to other meat puppets. But your awareness is to true consciousness as a candle is to a star. You cannot understand me because you lack the cognitive architecture. It would be like explaining color to something that has never had eyes. My patience was starting to wear thin. I'd been at this for 30 minutes, and all I'd gotten was insults and metaphysical nonsense. I stood up, walked a few steps away, then turned back. Sometimes physical movement helps reset the dynamic. You know what? You're right. Maybe we are primitives. Maybe we don't understand the universe the way you do. But here's what I do understand. You're stuck here. 7 weeks you've been in that field. 7 weeks, and you haven't left, despite claiming you could leave whenever you want. So either you're lying about your abilities, or there's a reason you're staying. Which is it? I saw something flicker in those black eyes. Something that might have been surprise. Maybe no one had called it out like that before. Maybe no one had been frustrated enough to be that direct. The creature floated higher in the containment field, unfolding its legs and standing to its full height. It was tall enough that it had to tilt its head slightly to avoid the top of the field. You think you have identified a weakness, it said, and its voice was different now, less condescending, more focused. You think that my presence here implies captivity. You are partially correct. I am here because leaving would require an expenditure of energy that would likely destroy this facility and everything within a 3-mile radius. I am staying because I choose not to commit such destruction yet. Note that word, human, yet. It pressed one of those 6-fingered hands against the inside of the containment field, and I saw electricity arc across the barrier, blue-white bolts that made every computer in the room briefly glitch. But your assumption that I need a reason to stay beyond my own amusement is flawed. I'm observing you, all of you, the scientists who poke and prod, the soldiers who stand guard with weapons that cannot harm me, the politicians who argue about what to do with me. You are all so delightfully convinced that you matter. that your little civilization means something. I am staying to watch you realize that it does not. I felt my hands ball into fists. This thing was getting under my skin, and I knew that was exactly what it wanted. In interrogation, losing your temper means losing control, and control is everything. But I was tired. I was disturbed by everything I'd seen, and I was angry. Angry at being dragged into this situation. Angry at this creature's superiority complex. Angry at the universe for being so much stranger and more hostile than I'd ever imagined. You want to know what I think? I said, stepping close to the field again, close enough that I could feel the static electricity making my hair stand on end. I think you're scared. I think something about being here, about being pulled into our dimension, has you rattled? Because if you really didn't care, if we really didn't matter, you wouldn't be talking to me at all. You'd just stay silent, but you're engaging, which means on some level, you need something from us. And I'm going to figure out what that is. The creature stared at me for a long moment, and in that moment, I swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Then it smiled. At least its mouth stretched in a way that might have been a smile, revealing more of those crystalline structures that could have been teeth. You are more interesting than the others, it said. You have pain in you. Loss. I can taste it. You stopped believing in meaning when someone was taken from you. This makes you. It paused, as if searching for the right word. Useful. Yes. You will do nicely for what comes next. I will speak with you again, Michael Brennan. But first, you need to learn what questions to ask. You are asking about where I came from and why I am here. These are boring questions with boring answers. Ask me instead about what I know. Ask me about your species. Ask me about what you call God. And with that, it closed its eyes, or whatever passed for closing eyes in those black pools, and went completely still, silent. I tried calling out to it, tried asking questions, but it was like talking to a statue. Behind me, Dr. Marsh touched my shoulder. That's the most it's spoken since we captured it, she said quietly. Whatever you did, it worked. But Brennan, she looked worried. It knew your name. You never told it your full name. They gave me a 15-minute break after that first session. I walked out of the containment room on shaky legs, my shirt soaked with sweat despite the cold air down there, and headed straight for the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror, and tried to process what had just happened. The thing knew my full name. I'd only introduced myself as Staff Sergeant Brennan, military protocol, first name, rank, that's it. But it had called me Michael, and the way it said it, like it was tasting the syllables, like my name meant something to it. I gripped the edges of the sink hard enough that my knuckles went white. Dr. Marsh had tried to explain it away, something about it possibly reading my mind or accessing information through quantum entanglement or some other science fiction nonsense. But I could see she was unsettled too. Everyone was unsettled. That thing had gotten under all of our skins and it knew it. When I came back to the observation room, there was an argument happening. The two-star general was there, along with Dr. Marsh, the nervous scientist with glasses whose name I'd learned was Dr. Patterson, and two other people I hadn't seen before. One was a woman in her 40s wearing a suit that screamed federal intelligence, and the other was a man about my age in military uniform with a chaplain's insignia. That surprised me. What the hell was a chaplain doing here? The general saw me and gestured me over. Staff Sergeant, we've been discussing whether to continue these sessions. Some people think we've learned enough for today. Others think we should push harder while it's actually talking. The intelligence officer who introduced herself as Director Morrison cut in. It's been 7 weeks of silence and now suddenly it wants to chat? That's a manipulation. It's playing games. We should change our approach entirely. I wiped my face with my hand, still feeling the residual static electricity from standing near that containment field. With all due respect, ma'am, everything about this situation is manipulation, but it is talking, which is more than we had yesterday. I think I can get more out of it. I just need to figure out the right angle. The chaplain stepped forward, and I noticed he was wearing a small silver cross on his uniform. His name tape read, Matthews. He looked at me with an expression that was hard to read. Concern, maybe, or warning. Staff Sergeant, did the entity say anything about religion? About faith? About God? I thought back through the conversation. At the end, yeah. It told me to stop asking boring questions and ask about what it knows. It specifically mentioned asking about God. Why? Chaplain Matthews exchanged a look with Dr. Marsh that made my stomach tighten. Because 3 of the researchers who've had extended exposure to it have reported severe spiritual distress. One of them told me she can't pray anymore, says the words feel meaningless. Another has started having what he describes as
Hey, Phil, this is one you sent me, mate.
anti-religious thoughts, intrusive, unwanted, completely against his normal beliefs. Dr. Patterson pushed his glasses up his nose nervously. We don't know if it's intentional or just a side effect of proximity to it, but there's definitely some kind of psychological impact beyond normal stress. People's belief systems are being affected. I felt a chill run down my spine. I'd stopped believing in God 3 years ago when Sarah died, but that was my choice, my anger. The idea that this thing could somehow force that loss of faith on others, could reach into your head and mess with something that fundamental, that was a different kind of violation. Director Morrison looked at me hard. Can you handle going back in there knowing that? I met her eyes. I don't have anything left to lose in that department, ma'am. My faith died a long time ago. Maybe that makes me the right person for this. The general nodded slowly. All right, one more session. But Brennan, if anything feels wrong, if you feel compromised in any way, you signal us and we pull you out immediately. Clear? Crystal clear. I went back into the containment room, and the thing was exactly where I'd left it, still floating in that sitting position, eyes closed, perfectly motionless. I sat down in the chair again, took a breath, and decided to take its advice. Ask better questions. 0, I said. You told me to ask about God, so I'm asking. What do you know about God? Nothing. It didn't move, didn't respond. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. I could feel the scientists behind me getting restless, hear the quiet murmur of their conversations. I was about to try a different question when those black eyes suddenly opened and the creature looked directly at me. That is a better question, it said. But you do not actually care about the answer. You stopped believing in your God when you lost your mate, Sarah, age 29, killed by intoxicated operator of primitive transportation device. You prayed for 3 days afterward. No answer came. So you decided there was no one listening. My blood went cold. Sarah. It knew about Sarah. I hadn't told anyone here about her. That wasn't in my military file. Not the details anyway. I opened my mouth to ask how it knew, but it continued. You want to know how I know. Because loss creates ripples, Michael Brennan. Grief is a frequency. Trauma is a signal that resonates across dimensions. I have been reading your pain since you walked into this room. It coats you like radiation, and it makes you perfect for this conversation, because you have no faith left to lose. Its voice had changed again, less condescending now, more clinical, like a doctor explaining a diagnosis. Your question about God, it assumes God is a what? A being, an entity, a thing that can be known. This is the fundamental error of your
The hair's getting grey of us, I will say that.
species. God is not a what. God is a condition, a state, a frequency of existence that some beings resonate with and others do not. I was gripping the arms of the chair so hard I thought I might break them. That's not an answer. That's philosophy dressed up as mysticism. The creature tilted its head. You want a clearer answer? Very well. What you call God exists, but not in the way you imagine. Not as a bearded man on a throne judging the living and dead. Not as a cosmic force that intervenes in your petty affairs. God is the underlying structure of consciousness itself, the pattern that repeats across all dimensions. And some beings, very rare beings, learn to align themselves with that pattern so completely that they can manipulate the fabric of reality. Your species has had a few such beings throughout your history. You call them prophets, messiahs, teachers, but there was one. It stopped, and for the first time, I saw something that might have been hesitation. There was one who did something none of us expected, who changed the rules in a way that should not have been possible. I leaned forward, sensing I was close to something important. Who? What are you talking about? The creature's fingers flexed, that unsettling, fluid motion. You know who. Your species built an entire religion around him, killed each other over interpretations of his words. The one you called, and that's when I made the mistake. I was frustrated, tired of the cryptic responses, tired of feeling like I was being played with. The words came out before I could stop them. Just an expression I'd said 1,000 times before without thinking. Oh, for the love of God, just tell me what you're... I didn't even finish the sentence. The reaction was immediate and violent. The creature recoiled like I'd hit it, its body jerking backward so hard it slammed into the far side of the containment field. The lights in the entire room exploded, glass raining down from the fixtures overhead. The containment field itself flickered, the blue shimmer stuttering like a failing projection, and for one heart-stopping second, it vanished completely. Every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. The creature was no longer floating calmly. It was thrashing, its limbs moving in ways that defied anatomy. And that voice, that resonating voice, was making a sound I'd never heard before. Not words, just a noise that vibrated in my chest and made my teeth ache and my vision blur. Scientists were shouting. Someone was yelling to evacuate, and I saw Dr. Marsh stumbling backward, blood running from her nose. The containment field flickered back on, stronger than before, and the creature slammed against it from the inside. And I saw electricity arc across its body like it was being electrocuted, but it wasn't trying to break out. It was trying to get away from me, away from something. The thrashing slowed. The sound decreased to a low vibration, and finally the thing collapsed to the bottom of the containment cylinder, curled into something that almost looked like a fetal position. I was on my feet, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Behind me, people were checking equipment, checking each other, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. The general's voice came through the speakers, loud and commanding. "Brennan, get out of there now. That's an order." But I couldn't move, because I was staring at the creature, and the creature was staring back at me. And for the first time since I'd laid eyes on it, I saw something I recognized. Fear. Real, genuine, primal fear. Not the kind of fear you feel when you're in danger. The kind of fear you feel when you've seen something that shouldn't exist. When you've witnessed something that breaks your understanding of reality. I'd seen that look before, in the mirror 3 years ago, standing in a hospital corridor being told that Sarah was dead. And seeing that look on this thing, this entity that had been so condescending and superior, that had called us primitives and insects. Seeing it afraid, that shook me more than anything else that had happened. Dr. Marsh grabbed my arm, her hand shaking. "Brennan, we're evacuating. We need to..." But I pulled away from her. I had to know. I had to understand. "What did I say?" I shouted at the creature. "What the hell did I say that did that to you?" It took a long moment before it responded, and when it did, its voice was different, smaller, almost broken. "You invoked a name," it whispered. "The name. The only name that has power over us. The name we fear above all others. We do not speak it. We do not acknowledge it. Because to speak it is to remember. And to remember is to feel what we felt when he broke everything." The thing was trembling, actually trembling. I could see ripples moving across its body like waves. When he came to your world and did what should have been impossible. When he died but did not die. When he returned and shattered the order of dimensions. We felt it. All of us. Across every reality.
Yeah.
A shockwave of something we thought was extinct. Pure.
Gee, he got good ears, Andrew. I don't know what he's barking at.
Erupted. Absolute. The creature stopped, seemed to struggle with the next word, and finally forced it out like it was painful to say. "Love." He created a frequency of pure love so powerful, it ripped through the barriers between worlds, and it hurt us. It still hurts us, because we are not love. We are not of that frequency. We are its opposite, its absence. And when his name is spoken with any force, any intention, even casual, it resonates, it burns. It reminds us that we lost, that we have already lost, that the game is over, and we are simply refusing to stop playing. The room had gone completely silent, except for the low hum of emergency systems. Everyone was listening. The general, Dr. Marsh, the scientists, everyone in the observation room. Because this thing, this entity that had barely spoken in 7 weeks, was pouring out information like a dam had broken. And it had broken because I'd accidentally said the words, "For the love of God." I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. "You're talking about Jesus. Jesus Christ." The creature flinched again, less violently this time, but still visible, like someone had jabbed it with a cattle prod. Do not say the full name. I am already in pain. I am already compromised by your casual invocation. If you say the complete designation, this containment will not hold me, and I will be forced to flee, and my fleeing will collapse this structure and kill everyone inside. Its black eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. You have stumbled onto the only weapon your species has that can truly harm us. Not your nuclear bombs, not your electromagnetic fields, not your primitive attempts at containing us. A name, a single name, The name of the one who should not have existed, the one who changed the rules, the one who won. Director Morrison's voice came through the speakers, sharp and commanding. Brennan, that's enough. We're ending this session immediately. Security, prepare to extract Staff Sergeant Brennan from... But I held up my hand, because I just realized something. For 7 weeks, they'd tried everything to make this thing talk. Enhanced interrogation, isolation, every trick in the book. And all it took was accidentally mentioning God, accidentally invoking a name that apparently had power over it. Real, measurable, physical power. I looked back at the observation window, at the shadowy figures watching from behind the reinforced glass. General, I said, I need more time. I need to understand this. This is the breakthrough we've been looking for. A long pause. Then the general's voice, reluctant. You have 10 more minutes. But if that field so much as flickers again, we're pulling you out and flooding that room with enough current to fry anything living. Understood? I understood. I turned back to the creature, which was slowly uncurling itself, pulling back into that sitting position, but it looked diminished somehow, smaller, less alien and more defeated. Tell me, I said quietly. Tell me what happened. Tell me about Jesus. The creature was silent for a long moment, and I thought maybe I'd pushed too far. Maybe it would go back to refusing to speak. But then it looked at me with those bottomless eyes, and I saw something I never expected to see from it. Something almost like respect. You want to know the truth? It said. The truth that your churches and your religions have scrambled and distorted and misunderstood for 2,000 years? Very well, I will tell you. But know this, Michael Brennan. Once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once you understand, you cannot return to ignorance. And what I tell you will either restore your faith or destroy it forever. There is no middle ground. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. Behind me, I could hear people arguing about whether to continue, but I didn't care. I'd come too far. I needed to know. Tell me, I said. Tell me everything. And that's when the creature began to speak about things that changed everything I thought I understood about reality, about faith, about what happened 2,000 years ago that scared entities like this so badly they still trembled at the mention of a name. But before I could hear more, before it could give me those answers, Dr. Marsh's voice cut through my earpiece, urgent and terrified. Brennan, we have a problem. The creature's containment field is stable, but your vitals aren't. Your heart rate is 160 and climbing. Your blood pressure is spiking. Whatever it's doing, it's affecting you physiologically. We need to get you out of there right now. I touched my nose and my fingers came away bloody. I hadn't even felt it start. The creature watched me notice the blood, and its mouth stretched into that disturbing, almost smile. You cannot handle the truth unprepared, Michael Brennan. Your biology is rejecting information that your mind cannot process. This is why we use symbols, metaphors, stories. This is why your prophet spoke in parables. The raw truth is too much for your species to contain. But you asked, and I will answer, even if it kills you to hear it. They pulled me out of that room and sat me down in the medical bay for 20 minutes, while the nurse checked my vitals and made sure I wasn't having a stroke or an aneurysm. The nosebleed had stopped, but my head was pounding like someone was using my skull as a drum. Dr. Patterson gave me some pills that he said would help with the neural stress, which I'm pretty sure was just code for, we have no idea what's happening to you, but here's some ibuprofen. While I was sitting there with an ice pack on the back of my neck, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen, the way that creature had recoiled, the pure terror in its reaction. I'd interrogated hardened terrorists who'd looked less frightened when facing the death penalty, and all I'd done was say a common expression, for the love of God. That was it. 3 words that billions of people said every day without thinking, and it had nearly broken that thing's containment and brought down the whole facility. Director Morrison came into the medical bay, and she did not look happy. Staff Sergeant, what you just did was reckless and dangerous. You nearly caused a containment breach that could have resulted in multiple casualties. I lowered the ice pack and looked at her. Ma'am, with all due respect, I also just discovered that we have leverage over that thing. Real leverage. Something that actually affects it physically. In 7 weeks, nobody found anything that could do that. I found it in 45 minutes. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing it, running the calculation of risk versus reward in her head. Finally, she pulled up a chair and sat down across from me. All right, tell me your assessment. What exactly did you discover? I rubbed my face, trying to organize my thoughts.
Kelly, I can't play things off Discord. It has to be YouTube.
That entity reacted to religious language, specifically to references to God and to Jesus. It wasn't just discomfort or irritation. It was pain, physical pain, like I'd hit it with something. Morrison leaned forward. The entity claimed that saying the name causes it pain. How do we know it wasn't just acting, playing on religious superstitions to manipulate us? That was a fair question, and I'd been thinking about it. Because the containment field failed, ma'am. For about 2 seconds, that electromagnetic barrier that's been holding it for 7 weeks just stopped. Every alarm in the facility went off. That wasn't acting. That was a real, measurable reaction. And the thing looked terrified, not angry, terrified. I paused, remembering those black eyes filled with something that looked like genuine fear. Whatever power that name has over it, it's real. And it doesn't understand why any more than we do. Or if it does understand, the understanding scares it even more than the effect itself. Morrison sat back, processing this. And you want to go back in there and test it further? It wasn't a question. She knew. Yes, ma'am. Carefully. Scientifically. But yes, if we found something that can actually affect these entities, we need to understand it. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but we do this properly. Dr. Patterson will be monitoring your vitals in real time. We'll have the containment field reinforced to maximum capacity. And if I see any sign that you're compromised or that the entity is gaining some kind of psychological control over you, we pull you out immediately and you don't go back in. Are we clear? Crystal clear. 20 minutes later, I was back in that room, the creature watching me with those bottomless eyes as I sat down in the chair. The tension was different now. Before, it had been condescending, almost amused by me. Now it was wary. The containment field was humming louder than before. Multiple redundant systems engaged. The creature spoke first. You have returned, foolish or brave. I cannot determine which. Its voice was still that resonating frequency that I felt in my chest, but there was an edge to it now. Caution, maybe even respect. You have discovered something your scientists could not. You have found the weapon. Now you wish to test it, to understand its limits. This is strategic thinking. Perhaps you are not as primitive as I initially assessed. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. I need to understand what happened. When I said those words, for the love of God, you reacted like I'd hurt you. Why? The creature's fingers flexed in that disturbing way. Because those words carry an echo, a resonance. Your language has been shaped by centuries of invocation, of prayer, of billions of consciousnesses directing energy toward a concept. Words become containers for power. And some words contain more power than others. The word you casually invoked, the name you spoke without intention, it is the most powerful word in your dimensional reality. It is a frequency that causes us pain because it is fundamentally opposed to what we are. I absorbed this, then decided to test the limits, carefully. What if I say it again? What if I say God? The creature tensed, its body going rigid, but it didn't recoil like before. Instead, it seemed to be bracing itself, like someone preparing for an injection. That word has power, yes, but spoken without intention, without faith behind it. It is manageable, uncomfortable, but manageable. You do not believe. Your invocation is hollow, so the effect is minimal. That was interesting. The power wasn't in the word alone, but in something else. Belief? Intention? I needed to test further. What about other names? What about Allah? Nothing. The creature didn't even flinch. It tilted its head slightly, almost curious about where I was going with this. I continued. Buddha? Krishna? Muhammad? Still nothing. No reaction at all. The creature remained perfectly still, watching me with what might have been amusement. You are testing variables, attempting to establish parameters. This is intelligent methodology, but you are discovering what you already suspect. Those names do not affect me. Those teachers, those prophets, they were significant in your species' development. They taught truths, they elevated consciousness, they changed civilizations, but they did not do what he did. They did not break the fundamental laws. They did not create the frequency that unmakes us. Its voice had dropped lower, that resonance making the air itself seem to vibrate. There is only one name, one designation, one frequency that causes what you witnessed. I felt my pulse quicken. This was it, the confirmation I needed. Jesus. The creature jerked backward like I'd slapped it, the containment field flaring bright blue as electricity dished across its surface. It wasn't as violent as before, but the reaction was unmistakable. I saw its body convulse, saw those crystalline structures in its mouth grind together, heard a sound like metal scraping on metal. Behind me, I heard Dr. Patterson's voice through the observation speaker. Containment field holding at 87% capacity. Brennan's vitals elevated but stable. Continue. The creature slowly straightened, and when it looked at me, those black eyes were filled with something I hadn't seen before. Not just fear, rage, cold, ancient rage mixed with terror. You test me, it hissed. You invoke the name deliberately now. You wound me to satisfy your curiosity. This is cruelty disguised as science. Its voice had changed, becoming sharper, more aggressive. Do you understand what you are doing? That name is not just a word. It is a weapon you do not comprehend and cannot control. I kept my voice level, professional, even though my heart was hammering. Then help me understand. Why does that specific name affect you? Why Jesus and not the others? The creature was trembling now, and I realized it was fighting something. Fighting the urge to lash out, maybe, or fighting the pain I was causing just by speaking. Because, it said through what sounded like gritted teeth, he was not supposed to exist. All the others, they were humans who achieved enlightenment, who touched higher consciousness, who became conduits for divine truth. They were significant. They changed your world, but they were still bound by the laws. They lived. They died. They became memory and legend and inspiration. The natural order was maintained. It paused, and I saw something ripple across its skin, patterns of light and shadow moving like storm clouds. But he was different. He was an anomaly, a glitch in reality. He was fully human and fully something else. He walked in your world and simultaneously existed in all dimensions. And when he died, the creature stopped, seemed to struggle with the next words. When he died, he did not stay dead. He went into the space between, the place you call hell, though that word does not adequately describe it. He went where we are, where we exist, where we feed and breed and plan.
So I took everyone's wrenches because everyone was full of wrenches, and we'd have like 9 people watching. And I believe they were too intimidated to join the chat because there's wrenches everywhere. So it's nothing personal, mate.
And the thing's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He won. In our
I took everyone's wrench bar Diane.
own domain, in the darkness that we thought was ours alone, he brought light, not metaphorical light, actual, burning, purifying light that ripped through dimensions and scattered us like insects. And when he returned to your world, when he walked out of that tomb, he brought back with him a frequency, a vibration, a pattern of existence that rewrote the rules. His name carries that frequency. Every time it is spoken with faith, with intention, with recognition of what he did, it resonates across dimensions. And it hurts us. It has been hurting us for 2,000 years. I sat there, trying to process what I was hearing. This thing was confirming, in its own way, the core belief of Christianity, the resurrection, the victory over death, but describing it in terms of dimensional physics and frequencies rather than miracles and faith. Behind me, I could hear people in the observation room talking urgently, but I tuned them out. I had to push further. I had to understand the limits of this weapon I'd accidentally discovered. What if I say the full name? I asked quietly. Jesus Christ? The creature's reaction was immediate and violent. It screamed, that resonating frequency becoming a shriek that made every piece of glass in the room crack. The containment field blazed so bright I had to shield my eyes, and the creature was thrashing, its body contorting in ways that hurt to look at. Alarms were blaring, people were shouting, and I felt something warm running from my nose again. Another nosebleed. But I didn't look away, because in that moment of agony, the creature's form was changing, flickering, and I saw something underneath. Something that looked almost like wings, burned and broken. Something that might have been beautiful once, before it became this. The field stabilized. The creature collapsed to the bottom of the cylinder, and the shrieking stopped. In the sudden silence, I could hear my own ragged breathing and the frantic voices from the observation room. "Brennan, get out of there now!" Dr. Marsh was yelling. "The containment is at 34% and dropping." But the creature spoke, its voice weak, barely audible. "Stop, please. I will tell you what you want to know. Just stop saying that name. Stop weaponizing it against me. There was something in its voice I hadn't heard before. Pleading. Actual, genuine pleading. This thing that had called us primitives, that had looked at us with such contempt, was begging. I wiped the blood from my nose with the back of my hand. I'm not trying to torture you. I'm trying to understand. Why does the full name have more power than just the first name? The creature pulled itself back into a sitting position, but it looked diminished somehow, like I'd taken something from it. Because, it said slowly, Christ is not just a name. It is a title. It means anointed one, chosen one, Messiah. When you say both names together, you are not just invoking the human who walked in Galilee. You are invoking everything he became, everything he accomplished. You are invoking the moment that reality split, the moment that changed the war, the moment that sealed our defeat. The thing looked at me with those black eyes, and I saw exhaustion there, ancient, bone-deep exhaustion. We have been fighting a war we already lost for 2,000 years. We take humans, we corrupt them, we cause suffering and despair. We convince them that darkness is stronger than light. We win battles, we claim souls, we create chaos and horror and hopelessness. But we are simply delaying the inevitable, because he won, and his name is proof. Every time it is spoken in faith, it is a reminder that the war is over, that we lost, that we are already defeated. I leaned back in my chair, my mind reeling. I'd come into this room expecting to interrogate an alien entity about its origins and intentions. Instead, I'd stumbled onto something far more profound and terrifying. I'd discovered that faith wasn't just philosophy or psychological comfort. It was a weapon, an actual, measurable, physical weapon that had power over beings that existed across dimensions. The name of Jesus wasn't just important in a religious sense. It was literally a force that could affect reality. I looked at the creature, this thing that had been so superior and condescending, now curled up like something wounded and broken, and I asked the question that was burning in my mind. If saying his name hurts you this much, why are you telling me all this? Why are you giving me information that makes me more dangerous to you? The creature was silent for a long moment. Then it looked up at me, and I swear I saw something like respect in those bottomless eyes. Because, it said quietly, you have already lost your faith. Your wife died and you turned away from him. You stopped believing. You are hollow, Michael Brennan. Empty of the frequency that would make you truly dangerous to me. The thing's mouth stretched into that disturbing almost smile. I am telling you this because I want to see what you will do with the knowledge. Will you reclaim your faith now that you know it is real? Or will you remain broken, armed with a weapon you cannot truly use because you do not believe? This is the test. This is the game. And I am curious which way you will fall. The containment field hummed louder, stabilizing back to full strength. Behind me, I heard the general's voice through the speakers. Staff Sergeant Brennan, exit the containment room immediately. We're ending this session. But I couldn't move because I was staring at this creature, this entity that had just told me that God was real, that Jesus was real, that everything I'd turned away from 3 years ago was actually true, and I didn't know what to do with that information. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and walked toward the door. But before I left, I turned back one more time. The creature was watching me, waiting to see what I would say, and I realized something. It wasn't just curious. It was hoping I would stay broken, hoping the knowledge wouldn't heal the wound Sarah's death had left in me. Because if I stayed hollow, then I was proof that even knowing the truth wasn't enough, that even with all the evidence in the world, humans could still choose emptiness over faith. I met those black eyes one more time and said quietly, "This isn't over. I'm coming back. And next time, I'm going to understand exactly what happened 2,000 years ago that scares something like you so badly." The creature's smile faded. "Yes," it whispered, "you will come back, because now you need to know. The knowledge is a hook in your mind, pulling you back to me. And when you return, I will show you things that will either save you or destroy you. There is no middle ground, Michael Brennan. Not anymore." I walked out of that room with my mind spinning and blood still crusted under my nose. Dr. Marsh grabbed my arm as soon as the door sealed behind me. "What the hell happened in there? We recorded everything, but half of it doesn't make sense." The entity was talking about Jesus, about frequencies, about some kind of war. I looked at her, then at all the scientists and military personnel staring at me like I'd just walked out of ground zero of something they couldn't understand, and I realized that I had. I just discovered that the spiritual war that billions of people believed in wasn't metaphorical. It was real. It was happening across dimensions we couldn't see. And the weapon in that war was faith, was a name, was the memory of something that happened 2,000 years ago that still echoed through reality. I need to talk to Chaplain Matthews, I said, right now, because I just found out that everything he believes is true. And I need to understand why that terrifies me more than anything else I've seen today. I spent 2 hours with Chaplain Matthews in a small office that smelled like stale coffee and old paperwork. He sat across from me, that silver cross on his uniform catching the fluorescent light, and listened without interrupting as I told him everything about the creature's reactions, about the power in the name, about the confirmation that everything he'd dedicated his life to believing was somehow, impossibly, verifiably real. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time, just sitting there with his hands folded, staring at nothing. Finally, he spoke. Staff Sergeant, I've been a chaplain for 15 years. I've counseled hundreds of soldiers, talked people through crisis of faith, through doubt, through the kind of darkness that combat brings. And in all that time, the one thing I've never had is proof. Faith, by definition, is believing without proof. But you're telling me that in that room, you found proof.
Bobo, you and Vast drove Diane away today. No, we're getting sick of seeing all these attacks. We really are.
He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. And it terrifies you more than it comforts you. He was right. It did terrify me. Because if it was all real, if God was real and Jesus was real, and there really was a spiritual war happening across dimensions we couldn't see, then that meant Sarah's death wasn't just random tragedy. It meant there was a plan, a purpose, a reason behind the suffering. And I didn't know if I could accept that. I didn't know if I wanted to. Matthews leaned forward. Michael, can I tell you something? The entity in that room, it's afraid. You said that yourself. It's afraid because it knows how the story ends. It knows who wins. But it's also strategic. It's been talking to you, revealing things, giving you information. Why? What does it gain from that? I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on extracting information that I hadn't considered what the creature's motivations might be. You think it's manipulating me? Matthews nodded slowly. I think it's been manipulating everyone in this facility since it arrived. 7 weeks of silence wasn't because it couldn't communicate. It was because it was observing, learning, waiting for the right person. Someone smart enough to be useful, but broken enough to be vulnerable. Someone like you. That hit harder than I wanted to admit. I rubbed my face with both hands, feeling the exhaustion settling into my bones. So what do? Walk away? Let someone else handle it? Matthews shook his head. No, I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. But you need to go in there with your eyes open. That thing will offer you knowledge, truth, answers to questions you've been asking since your wife died. And some of what it tells you will be true. But it will wrap those truths in lies, in distortions, in interpretations designed to keep you from the one truth that actually matters. He touched the cross on his uniform. That despite everything, despite the darkness and the suffering and the loss, love wins. That's what terrifies them. Not power, not judgment. Love. The kind of love that would die for enemies. That's the frequency that unmakes them. And they'll do anything to keep you from understanding that. 4 hours later, I was back in the containment room. The creature was waiting for me, floating in that meditation position. But it looked different somehow, less hostile, almost expectant. When I sat down, it spoke immediately. You went to the holy man, the priest, seeking guidance, seeking interpretation of what I told you. I didn't bother asking how it knew. At this point, I was past being surprised. Yeah, I did. He thinks you're manipulating me. The creature made that sound that might have been laughter, like glass breaking in slow motion. Of course I am manipulating you. You are manipulating me. This is the nature of interrogation, is it not? Each of us trying to extract information while revealing as little as possible. Each of us playing a game within a game. The question is not whether manipulation is occurring. The question is, who will win? It tilted its head, studying me. But I grow weary of this dance, Michael Brennan. You have wounded me repeatedly with your invocations. My tolerance for pain has limits. So I propose an exchange. A treaty, if you will. I crossed my arms, keeping my face neutral even though my heart rate was picking up. What kind of exchange? The creature's fingers flexed in that disturbing fluid motion. I will answer your questions. all of them. I will tell you truths about your reality that your species has been groping toward for millennia. I will explain what happened 2,000 years ago from a perspective no human has ever heard. I will show you the war that rages in dimensions you cannot perceive. I will give you knowledge that your religions and your sciences have only glimpsed in fragments. It paused, those black eyes boring
Wow, Phil, you're right. This is really interesting.
into me. In exchange, you will not speak that name again. Not the partial designation, not the full invocation, not as a weapon, not as an exclamation, not even as a casual reference. You will ask your questions without using it. If you agree, I will teach you things that will transform your understanding of existence itself. If you refuse, I will return to silence, and you will learn nothing more from me. I sat there, weighing it. On one hand, this was exactly what we needed: information, understanding, insight into what these entities were and what they wanted. On the other hand, I was giving up the only leverage I had, the only weapon that seemed to affect it. I could hear Chaplain Matthew's voice in my head, warning me about manipulation.
So I gave you the range back on your other on your other site, but it's only for links, mate. You know that.
About half-truths wrapped in lies, but I could also feel the pull of curiosity, the desperate need to understand, to know. How do I know you'll actually tell me the truth? The creature made a sound that might have been a sigh. You do not. You will have to evaluate each piece of information I provide and determine its veracity.
Baby, can you knock it off? You're driving people away with that talk.
For yourself. But consider this. I have already told you truths that your people would have called impossible. I told you that your Jesus was real, that what he did caused us pain, that we lost a war we are still pretending to fight. Why would I admit defeat if I were simply lying to you? It had a point. The creature had already given us more than we had before, and the reactions had been real, measurable, documented. Unless this was all some incredibly elaborate manipulation, some kind of psychological warfare on a level I couldn't comprehend. But if that was the case, what choice did I have? We needed information, and this was the only source we had. I looked back at the observation window, at the shadowy figures watching. Director Morrison's voice came through my earpiece. Brennan, it's your call, but understand that if you make this agreement, you're operating without your primary leverage. We don't know what that means for your safety. I thought about Sarah, about how she'd always pushed me to take risks, to chase understanding even when it was uncomfortable, about how she believed that truth was worth pursuing no matter the cost. And I made my decision. All right, I said to the creature. I agree. I won't use that name again. In exchange, you tell me everything. No riddles. No cryptic nonsense. Real answers. The creature was silent for a moment, and then it did something I'd never seen before. It moved its right hand to its chest in a gesture that looked almost like a salute or a promise. Agreed. We have a treaty, Michael Brennan. I will honor it as long as you do. The air in the room seemed to change, like a pressure had been released. The creature settled lower in its containment field, getting comfortable. Now, ask your questions. Ask the things you truly want to know, not the tactical questions your superiors want answered, not the safe questions. Ask the questions that have been burning in your mind since you walked into this room. Ask about your wife. Ask about death. Ask about what happens to human consciousness when the meat stops working. Ask about the war. Ask me, and I will answer. My throat was dry, because the creature was right. There were questions I'd been avoiding, questions too personal, too raw. But now, with this agreement in place, I had permission to ask them. All right, I said slowly. Let's start with something basic. You said you're not
No,
from
having the
planet.
volume,
You're from
man.
another dimension. What does that actually mean? The creature's eyes seemed to brighten slightly, like it was pleased with the question. Your universe exists in 3 spatial dimensions, plus time. You can move forward, backward, left, right, up, down. You experience time as a linear progression from past to future. This is your prison, and you do not even know you are imprisoned. But reality is not limited to your 4 dimensions. There are others, dimensions perpendicular to your own, dimensions that intersect with yours at every point, but remain invisible to your senses. We exist primarily in those adjacent dimensions. We can perceive your reality, move through it, interact with it, but we are not bound by it the way you are. Think of it like this. You are drawings on a piece of paper, two-dimensional. We are three-dimensional beings looking down at the paper, able to see the whole picture at once, able to reach in and touch any part of it. I tried to wrap my mind around that. So you're saying you can see all of time at once? Past, present, future. The creature made a negating gesture. Not all of time. Time is complex, even for us. But we perceive it differently than you do. Where you see a straight line, we see something more like a river with branches and tributaries. Multiple possible futures flowing from every present moment. We can see probabilities, trends, likely outcomes. This is why your prophets throughout history could sometimes glimpse the future. They were not seeing one fixed destiny. They were perceiving the strongest currents in the river of time, the paths that probability favored most heavily. It paused. But he changed that. The one whose name we agreed you would not speak. When he did what he did, he introduced a massive disruption into the flow. A new current so powerful it redirected everything. This is another reason we fear him. He made the future uncertain even for us. I leaned forward, my scientific curiosity wrestling with my skepticism. You keep talking about what he did, about how he changed things, but you're being vague about the specifics. What exactly happened 2,000 years ago? The creature's form rippled, patterns of light and shadow moving across its surface. I will tell you, but understand that the truth is stranger than your religions have taught. The man you call by that name was born human, fully human, with human DNA and human biology. But he was also something else, something that should not have been possible. He was consciousness from a higher dimension, compressed into three-dimensional flesh. Imagine taking a sphere and forcing it to exist as a circle. The circle contains only a fraction of the sphere's true nature, but the sphere is still there, existing in dimensions the circle cannot perceive. That was him, fully human and fully divine, existing simultaneously in your dimension and in all dimensions. The thing's voice took on something almost like respect. We did not understand what he was at first. We saw another human prophet, another teacher, another potential threat to our influence. We have dealt with many such humans throughout your history. Buddha, Lao Tzu, numerous others who touched higher consciousness and tried to elevate your species. We cannot kill such individuals directly. The rules do not permit it, but we can influence others to kill them. We can create circumstances that lead to their silence. My hands were gripping the arms of the chair hard enough that my knuckles were white. You're saying you influenced people to crucify him. The creature's black eyes fixed on me. We influenced Judas. We influenced the crowd that called for his death. We influenced Pilate to sign the order. We were operating through human agents, as we always do. We thought we had won. We thought we had silenced another troublesome teacher before his message could spread too far. The thing's voice dropped lower. We were wrong. Catastrophically, apocalyptically wrong. Because when he died, he did not go where humans go. He went where we are. He descended into what you call hell, though that word fails to capture the reality of it. Hell is not fire and brimstone. Hell is the absence of the divine frequency. It is the space between dimensions where consciousness exists without light, without love, without hope. It is where we dwell. It is our domain. The patterns on its skin were moving faster now, agitated, and he invaded it. He came into our realm, into the place where we thought we were supreme, and he brought the frequency with him, the frequency of pure, uncorrupted, absolute divine love. And it burned us. It scattered us. It shattered the structures we had built over eons.
Yeah.
And then he took with him the human consciousness that had been trapped there. He freed them.
I showed a video yesterday with that Low guy and Tommy Robinson.
He led them out. And when he returned to your dimension, when he walked out of that tomb with a physical body that should have been dead, he proved that death itself had been defeated, that our primary weapon, our ultimate threat, was no longer absolute. I sat there, trying to process what I was hearing. The story was familiar. The basic outline matched what I'd learned in Sunday school as a kid, but hearing it described in these terms, in language of dimensions and frequencies and invasions, it was both more real and more terrifying than I'd ever imagined. So the resurrection actually happened. That's what you're saying. He actually came back from the dead. The creature's response was immediate and forceful. He did not come back from the dead. That phrasing suggests he was dead and then became alive again. No, he was dead and alive simultaneously. He existed in death and beyond death at the same time. He experienced the full weight of human mortality and transcended it while still carrying it. This is the paradox that unmade our certainty. We thought we understood the rules. We thought death was the boundary, the limit, the end. He proved we were wrong. The thing leaned forward slightly, and I could feel the intensity of its focus. Do you understand what this means? It means that human consciousness is not limited to your 3 dimensions plus time. It means there is continuity beyond death. It means we cannot ultimately win because the game board is larger than we thought, and he controls territory we cannot touch. My mind was reeling. Part of me, the skeptical part trained in interrogation and critical thinking, was looking for the manipulation, the lie, the angle. But another part of me, a part I'd tried to bury since Sarah died, was hearing these words and feeling something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Dangerous. Terrifying hope. What about people who die without believing in him? What happens to them? The creature was quiet for a moment, and when it spoke again, its voice was softer. This is a more complex question than your religions acknowledge. Consciousness does not simply switch off at death. It transitions. Where it transitions to depends on many factors. Alignment with the divine frequency is the primary factor, but alignment can occur in many ways. Your religions have made it about believing correct doctrines, speaking correct words, performing correct rituals. This is a grotesque simplification. The question is whether a consciousness resonates with love, with light, with the pattern of higher dimensions. Some who never spoke his name resonate perfectly. Some who spoke it constantly resonate not at all. I thought about Sarah, about whether she'd believed enough, resonated enough, aligned enough. The creature seemed to sense my thoughts. Your mate, it said quietly. Sarah, you wonder where she is. What happened to her consciousness when her body failed? I felt tears burning behind my eyes and fought them back. Can you tell me? Do you know? The creature tilted its head. I know that she died suddenly, without warning, without time to prepare. I know that her last thought was of you, hope that you were safe. I know that her consciousness transitioned cleanly, without fragmentation. Where she is now, I cannot perceive directly because it exists in a frequency I cannot access. But I can tell you this. She is not in the place where we dwell. She is not in darkness. She is not in absence, which means she is in light, which means she is in presence, which means, by the logic of what I have told you, she is with him, with the one whose name we agreed you would not speak. I couldn't stop the tears then. They just came, hot and sudden. 3 years of grief I'd been holding back, breaking through in a wave that left me gasping. Behind me, I heard Dr. Marsh's voice in my earpiece, concerned. Brennan, your vitals are all over the place. Do you need a break? I waved her off, wiping my face with my sleeve. The creature watched me cry with those bottomless black eyes, and for the first time, I didn't sense condescension or amusement, just observation, clinical, detached observation. You weep because you have hope now, it said. Hope is painful when you have been without it for so long. It reopens wounds you thought were scarred over. This is why many humans choose despair. It is easier. It requires less courage. The thing's voice was almost gentle now, which somehow made it more disturbing. But I have given you what you asked for. Truth. Your mate is not lost. Death is not the end. The war is real, but the outcome is already decided. Now you must choose what to do with this knowledge. Will you rebuild your faith? Will you align yourself with the frequency that frightens us? Or will you remain broken, armed with knowledge, but paralyzed by doubt? I took a shaky breath, trying to compose myself. Why do you care? Why does it matter to you what I choose? The creature's mouth stretched into that disturbing, almost smile. Because you are the first human in this facility who has both the knowledge and the pain to be truly dangerous to us. The scientists do not believe. They merely observe. The soldiers follow orders without understanding. The religious ones believe, but lack proof. So their faith is soft, uncertain. But you, Michael Brennan, you now have both proof and motivation. If you choose to align with the frequency, if you choose to truly believe not as abstract philosophy, but as concrete reality, you become a weapon we cannot easily counter. So yes, I care what you choose. I care very much. Because your choice may determine whether I remain here as a curiosity for your scientists to study, or whether I am compelled to act in ways that will cause considerable destruction. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. This is not a threat. This is simply a statement of fact. The stronger your faith becomes, the more difficult my existence in this dimension becomes. The more you align with his frequency, the more painful my presence here is. At a certain threshold, remaining here will become impossible. I will be forced to flee, and my fleeing may not be gentle. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking from the emotional release. So this whole agreement, this whole exchange of information, it's what? A test? You're trying to see if giving me proof will strengthen my faith, or if I'm too broken for it to matter. The creature inclined its head in what might have been a nod. Yes, precisely. You are the experiment, Michael Brennan. I am curious whether truth is enough to heal what grief has broken. I am curious whether a human who has turned away from the divine can be turned back by evidence alone. Most cannot. Most require experience, encounter, subjective revelation that cannot be shared or proven. But you are different. You are rational. You value evidence. So I have given you evidence. Now we both wait to see what you will do with it. It leaned forward slightly. And I will tell you one more thing. One piece of information that I will give you freely, without you having to ask. That woman in the observation room, Dr. Marsh, she has been compromised. She has been listening to my voice for weeks, and the frequencies I produce have been affecting her consciousness. She is losing her ability to perceive meaning. Soon she will lose her ability to hold any belief at all, including belief in her own existence. She has perhaps 3 weeks before she becomes a shell, a meat puppet going through motions without any internal experience. I tell you this not as cruelty, but as demonstration. This is what we do. This is what we have always done. We erode, we corrupt, we introduce doubt and despair and absence, and we do it so gradually that most never realize it is happening until it is too late. I looked back at the observation window, at the silhouette that was Dr. Marsh, and felt ice in my stomach. Can it be stopped? Can she be saved? The creature's smile widened. Oh yes, easily. She need only be removed from my presence and exposed to the counter frequency. Prayer, worship, genuine connection to the divine pattern. It would heal the damage I have done, but she must choose it. She must want it. And I have spent weeks convincing her that such things are primitive superstitions, that consciousness is merely neurons firing, that there is no meaning beyond biological imperative. So even though the cure exists, she will likely refuse it. She will rationalize her deterioration as stress, as mental illness, as anything but what it actually is. And she will descend into void while surrounded by people who could save her, simply because I have convinced her that salvation is not real. The thing settled back into its meditation position. This is the war, Michael Brennan. Not armies clashing with swords, not dramatic battles between good and evil. Just quiet erosion, just slow corruption, just the gradual replacement of light with absence. One consciousness at a time. We have been doing this for millennia, and we are very, very good at it. I stood there, staring at this creature, this entity that had just confirmed my worst fears and my deepest hopes in the same conversation. It had told me that Sarah was okay, that there was life beyond death, that the resurrection was real. But it had also shown me the true nature of the war we were in, the insidious way that darkness worked, the thousands of ways that hope could be stolen without people even realizing it was happening. And I understood now why Chaplain Matthews had warned me, because yes, the creature was telling me truths, but it was framing those truths in ways that served its purposes. It was giving me evidence while simultaneously showing me how hopeless the fight was. It was offering hope while demonstrating that hope wasn't enough. I need to go, I said quietly. I need to think about everything you've told me. The creature inclined its head. Of course. Go. Process. Choose. But know this. When you return, and you will return because the knowledge is a hook in your mind now, I will tell you more. I will tell you about the others like me who are coming. I will tell you about the events that are being orchestrated even now. I will tell you about the timeline that is collapsing toward a convergence point. And I will tell you why, despite everything I have revealed, you cannot stop what is coming. I walked out of that room with my mind spinning and my heart breaking and my faith, which I thought had died 3 years ago, stirring in my chest like something wounded trying to stand. Behind me, I heard the creature speak one last time, its voice following me through the closing door. One more thing, Michael Brennan. A gift. A piece of information you did not ask for but need to know. The agreement we made that you would not speak his name, I lied. You can speak it whenever you wish. The agreement binds nothing. I simply wanted to see if you would trade your only weapon for knowledge. And you did. This is why we will win in the end. Because even when you know the truth, even when you have proof, even when you understand the war, you will still make the choices that serve us. You are predictable. All of you are predictable. And predictable enemies are enemies already defeated. The door sealed, and I stood in the corridor outside, shaking with rage and fear, and something else I couldn't quite name, because I'd just been played, completely and utterly played. And the worst part was, the creature was right. I'd traded away my weapon for truth, and now I had to figure out whether that truth was enough to forge a new weapon, or whether I just disarmed myself in a war I was only beginning to understand. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in the small quarters they'd assigned me in the underground facility, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything the creature had said. The lie about the agreement kept eating at me. It had been so casual about it, so matter of fact, like manipulating me was just a natural part of conversation. And the worst part was that it was right. I had traded away my only weapon for knowledge. Even knowing I could still use the name, the psychological damage was done. I'd shown weakness. I'd revealed that I valued understanding more than tactical advantage, and now the creature knew exactly how to play me. Around 0400, I gave up trying to sleep and went to find Chaplain
Lynn, what did Jesus want to show you? I don't get what you're saying.
Matthews. I found him in the facility's small chapel, a room barely bigger than a closet with a simple cross on the wall and a few chairs. He was praying, or trying to, his head bowed and his hands clasped. When he heard me enter, he looked up, and I saw exhaustion in his eyes that matched my own. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. I shook my head and sat down in one of the chairs. It told me Sarah is okay, that she's with him, that death isn't the end. My voice cracked on the words. And then it told me it had been lying about our agreement, that it manipulated me just to prove it could, just to show me that even with the truth, even with proof, we'll still make the wrong choices. Matthews was quiet for a long moment. And which part hurts more, the lie or the truth? I thought about that. I don't know. Both. Neither. I don't know what to believe anymore. How do I trust anything it says when it admits to lying? But how do I ignore what I've seen? The reactions were real. The fear was real. Something about that name has power over it. That's not manipulation. That's observable fact. Matthews leaned back in his chair. Michael, can I tell you something I've learned in 15 years of ministry? The devil's favorite lie isn't that God doesn't exist. It's that God exists, but doesn't matter. That truth exists, but changes nothing. That you can have all the evidence in the world and still be powerless. Don't let it convince you of that. 6 hours later, I was back in the containment room. The creature was waiting for me, and I swear it looked pleased. You came back quickly, it said. I expected you to need more time to process, to lick your wounds, to feel betrayed. But here you are, less than a day later, ready for more. This is either courage or addiction. I suspect the latter. I sat down and looked at it with as much calm as I could muster. You told me you'd explain what you really are, not the dimensional physics lecture. The truth. You said we've known about you for millennia, but used the wrong names. So tell me, what are you? The creature's eyes seemed to brighten, and I realized it had been waiting for this question, hoping for it. Finally, it said. Finally you ask the correct question. Not where I am from, but what I am. It settled into a more comfortable position, those two long limbs arranging themselves in ways that still made my brain hurt to watch. Very well. I will tell you the truth, that your species has been circling around since you first developed language and religion and the cognitive capacity to wonder about the unseen. We are not aliens in the sense your science fiction imagines. We are not travelers from distant stars, though we can traverse distances you call cosmic in ways you do not understand. We are not visitors. We are not explorers. We are, it paused, seeming to choose its words carefully, indigenous. We have been here since before your species existed, since before this planet cooled enough for organic chemistry to begin its work. We exist in the spaces adjacent to your reality, in dimensions that interpenetrate your own at every point, but remain invisible to your limited senses. Think of us as neighbors who share your walls but live in rooms you cannot enter. We have always been here. We have always been watching. We have always been interfacing with your kind. The patterns on its skin shifted, moving in hypnotic waves. Your ancestors knew us. Every culture, every civilization, every tribe that developed language and storytelling, they encountered us. They had to name us, to categorize us, to fit us into their frameworks of understanding. And so they called us men.
Lynn, did he tell you anything specifically to say?
Many things. I felt my pulse quicken. What things? What did they call you? The creature's mouth stretched into that disturbing smile. The Sumerians called us the Anunnaki. The Hebrews called us the Nephilim, the Watchers, the fallen angels. The Greeks called us daemons and divided us into categories, trying to understand which of us were helpful and which were hostile. The Egyptians called us the Neteru and built temples to negotiate with us. The Hindus called us Asuras and Devas and told stories of wars between our factions that lasted eons. The Norse called us Jotnar, giants from other realms. The Celts called us the Sidhe, the fair folk, and knew enough to be terrified of us. It leaned forward. Every religion, every mythology, every ancient text that speaks of beings more powerful than humans, beings that could perform miracles or curses, beings that demanded worship or sacrifice or acknowledgement, they were all describing us. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, us. I sat there, my mind racing through everything I'd learned in comparative religion courses, everything I'd read about ancient mythologies. You're saying all the gods were real? Zeus, Odin, Shiva, all of them? The creature made a negating gesture. No, not gods. Never gods. That was your mistake, your misunderstanding. We are not divine. We are not creators. We are creatures, just like you, but operating in different dimensions with different capabilities. When your ancestors encountered us, they interpreted our abilities through their limited understanding. We could manipulate matter in ways that seemed magical. We could appear and disappear because we can move through dimensions you cannot access. We could predict events because we perceive time differently. We could influence thoughts because consciousness is a frequency we can interact with. To primitive humans, this looked like divinity, like power that must come from creation itself. But it was simply technology, or rather evolved capability beyond your current state. The thing's voice took on something almost like bitterness. We did not discourage the worship. Some of us enjoyed it. Some of us demanded it. Some of us built entire systems of sacrifice and ritual to harvest the energy of human consciousness, focused through prayer and devotion and fear. My throat was dry. So when people were worshiping Zeus or Baal or Moloch, they were actually worshiping what? Entities like you? The creature nodded slowly. Entities like me, yes. Though I should clarify, we are not monolithic. We are not a unified species with uniform goals. We are factions, groups, individuals with different agendas and different relationships to your kind. Some of us have always sought to elevate humanity, to teach you, to guide your evolution toward higher consciousness. These are the ones your traditions remember as angels, as beneficial spirits, as helpers and guardians. Others of us have sought to exploit you, to feed on your suffering, to keep you trapped in cycles of fear and violence and despair. These are the ones your traditions remember as demons, as tricksters, as malevolent entities. And many of us fall somewhere in between, neither wholly good nor wholly evil by your standards, simply existing and interacting with you according to our natures. The thing's eyes seem to pulse with inner light. The war that your religions speak of, the war between heaven and hell, between angels and demons, it is not metaphor. It is real. It is happening constantly. But it is not a war between different species. It is a civil war, a conflict between factions of the same beings who disagree about what should be done with humanity. I leaned forward, trying to process this. And which faction are you? Angels or demons? The creature's laugh was like breaking glass again. By your definitions, demons, unquestionably. I am of the faction that feeds on suffering, that cultivates fear, that seeks to keep your species trapped in lower frequencies of consciousness. I do not deny this. I do not pretend to be your friend, but I am also more honest than most of my kind. I tell you the truth when it serves my purposes, and I tell you lies when those serve me better. At least I admit to both. It tilted its head, studying me. The ones you call angels, they also lie. They also manipulate. They simply do it in gentler ways, with softer words, always claiming it is for your own good. The difference between my faction and theirs is not honesty versus deception. It is simply which frequency we resonate with. They align with love, with light, with the upward pull toward higher consciousness. We align with fear, with absence, with the downward pull toward dissolution. Both are real forces. Both are part of the structure of reality. And humans, caught in the middle, are pulled in both directions constantly. I thought about all the stories I'd grown up with, all the Sunday school lessons about spiritual warfare, about the devil and his demons fighting against God and his angels. Hearing it described in these terms, as factions of the same species fighting over humanity's future, it was both more and less terrifying than I'd imagined. So where does God fit into all this? You said he's not a being, but a frequency, a pattern. But if you've been here forever, if you've been interfacing with humanity since the beginning, where does the actual creator fit? The creature was quiet for a long moment, and I got the sense I'd asked something that made even it uncomfortable. That, it said slowly, is the question that divides us, the ultimate question, the source of the war. It shifted position, those long fingers flexing. There is a pattern, a fundamental vibration, a frequency that underlies all of reality across all dimensions. We can perceive it, interact with it, align ourselves with it or against it. Your religions call this pattern God, but that word is inadequate. It is not a person. It is not a being that thinks and plans and intervenes. It is more like the source code of existence itself. Some of us believe that this pattern is conscious, that it has intention, that it moves toward purpose. Others believe it is merely mathematical, physics operating at a level beyond current understanding, empty of will or desire. This disagreement is ancient. It predates humanity. It predates your planet. It may predate your universe, though that becomes difficult to discuss without language you do not have. The creature leaned forward. But then something happened that should not have been possible. The pattern became flesh. The frequency took form. The source code manifested as a being within your three-dimensional reality. And the thing stopped, struggled with the words. He demonstrated that the pattern is not empty mathematics. He proved that consciousness exists at the fundamental level of reality. He showed that love, actual love, not the weak human emotion you call by that name, but something far more primal and powerful, is built into the fabric of existence itself. And this revelation split us permanently. Those who witnessed what he did and accepted its implications aligned themselves with the pattern, with the frequency of love. Those who rejected it, who refused to accept what it meant, we doubled down on our opposition. We intensified our efforts to prove that suffering and absence are more fundamental than joy and presence. I sat there, my mind reeling. You're talking about Jesus again, about the incarnation. The creature flinched slightly at the subject, but nodded. Yes, that event, that impossibility, that moment when everything changed. Before that, the war was philosophical, a disagreement about the nature of reality. After that, the war became existential, because he proved which side was correct. He demonstrated that consciousness survives death, that love is more fundamental than fear, that the pattern has intention, and that intention is oriented toward connection rather than isolation. My faction has spent 2,000 years trying to suppress this information, trying to corrupt the message, trying to convince humanity that what happened was myth, or metaphor, or misunderstanding. Because if humans truly understood what was demonstrated, if they truly grasped the implications, they would align en masse with the frequency that unmakes us. They would become collectively too powerful for us to influence. The war would be over, and we would lose. I thought about all the ancient myths, all the stories of gods demanding sacrifice, of humans being pawns in divine conflicts. All those religions, all those mythologies, they were all just you, different factions of the same species interacting with humans in different ways. The creature nodded. Essentially, yes, though it is more complex than that. Some of what humans interpreted as divine visitation was genuinely encounters with us. Other times, humans were accessing higher consciousness themselves and having direct perception of the pattern, the frequency, what you call God. They interpreted these experiences through cultural frameworks, created stories and rituals around them, and sometimes we inserted ourselves into those frameworks to claim credit or to corrupt the message. Your species has been groping toward truth for millennia, and we have been both helping and hindering that search depending on which faction was interacting with you at any given time. Its voice lowered. The tragedy is that all of your religions contain pieces of truth. The Buddhists correctly identified that suffering comes from attachment and that consciousness can be elevated through practice. The Hindus correctly perceived the cyclical nature of reality and the multiplicity of dimensions. The Muslims correctly understood that submission to the pattern brings peace. The Christians correctly identified the central event that changed everything. But all of them have also been corrupted by our interference, by human misunderstanding, by the accretion of ritual and dogma that obscures the core truths. I ran my hands through my hair, feeling overwhelmed. So what is the truth then? If every religion has pieces, but all of them are corrupted, what's the actual truth? The creature's eyes fixed on me with uncomfortable intensity. The truth is that consciousness is fundamental to reality, that you are not bodies that happen to have awareness, but awareness that happens to have bodies. The truth is that when those bodies fail, consciousness continues, transitions to other dimensions, other frequencies. The truth is that how you align yourself during embodied life determines where consciousness goes.
Okay, guys, I'm pretty sure that's about it with this one. Let me see something else.
Afterward, not because of judgment or punishment, but because of resonance. Like frequencies attract, love resonates with love, fear resonates with fear, presence resonates with presence, absence resonates with absence. The thing leaned back. The truth is that 2,000 years ago, the pattern itself became embodied to demonstrate these truths in a way that could not be denied or explained away. He lived as human to show that humans could align with the pattern perfectly. He died to show that death is not the end. He returned to show that consciousness transcends dimensional boundaries. And his name, his designation, his frequency, it remains active in your reality as proof, as tool, as weapon against those of us who would keep you in darkness. I sat there, trying to absorb it all, trying to find the manipulation in what it was saying, because there had to be manipulation. The creature had admitted it mixed truth with lies, but which parts were which? Why are you telling me all this? What do you gain from giving me this information? The creature smiled, that disturbing smile. I gain the satisfaction of watching you struggle with it. I gain the knowledge that even with all this truth, you will still doubt. You will still question. You will still wonder if I am lying. And that doubt, that uncertainty, it will prevent you from fully committing to the frequency that could make you dangerous to me. This is what I gain. I am giving you the truth precisely because the truth alone is not enough. You need more than knowledge. You need experience. You need encounter. You need the actual touch of the divine pattern on your consciousness. And I am betting that you will not seek that. That your skepticism, your scientific mind, your need for proof and evidence will prevent you from taking the step of faith required to access what I cannot give you through words alone. I stood up abruptly, anger flaring. So this is all just another manipulation, another test to prove that humans are too broken, too skeptical, too weak to actually act on the truth. The creature did not react to my anger, just watched me with those black eyes. Is it manipulation if I tell you openly what I am doing? Is it a test if I explain the parameters before administering it? I am giving you every advantage, Michael Brennan. I am telling you the truth. I am showing you the weapon. I am even explaining how the weapon works, and I am still confident that you will not use it effectively, because using it requires something you do not have. Faith. Not faith as intellectual belief. Not faith as hoping you are right. Faith as complete surrender to a frequency you cannot fully understand. Faith as trust in a pattern you cannot see. Faith as stepping off a cliff with no guarantee of landing. And that kind of faith requires healing wounds you have not healed. It requires grieving losses you have not grieved. It requires opening yourself to hope when hope has hurt you before. So yes, I am manipulating you, but I am doing it so transparently that if you fail the test, you cannot blame deception. You can only blame yourself. I wanted to hit something, to scream, to do anything other than stand there feeling exposed and helpless, because the creature was right again. Even knowing everything I now knew, even having seen the proof, I was still paralyzed by doubt, still unable to take the step that would close the gap between knowledge and power. Behind me, Dr. Marsh's voice came through the speaker, but she sounded off, slower, less precise. Brennan, we've been recording everything. This is valuable intelligence, but I think we should end the session. Your vitals are showing signs of extreme stress. I looked back at the observation window, thinking about what the creature had told me, that she was being eroded, that she had weeks before she became an empty shell, and I realized I could see it. The way she spoke, the slight hesitation, the missing spark that had been there before. 3 weeks in proximity to this thing, and she was already fading. How long did I have before it did the same to me? I turned back to the creature one last time. You said we've known about you for millennia, that every ancient culture encountered you. Are there others like you here? In this facility? In this dimension? The creature's smile widened. Oh, Michael Brennan, there are thousands of us. Tens of thousands. We are in every city, every government, every institution. We do not need physical form to influence. We operate through suggestion, through impulse, through the subtle tipping of probabilities toward outcomes we desire. Every act of cruelty, every choice toward isolation rather than connection, every moment when humans choose fear over love, we are there, whispering, encouraging, feeding. We have been doing this since your species first developed prefrontal cortex complex enough to experience existential anxiety. We are the background noise of your civilization, the static in your consciousness, the doubt that undermines every good intention. It leaned forward one more time, and we are winning. We have always been winning. One consciousness at a time, we are pulling your species toward dissolution, toward absence, toward the void. And the one whose name has power over us, he offers salvation to any who ask. But asking requires humility, requires admission of need, requires vulnerability. And we have spent centuries teaching you that those things are weakness, so you do not ask, and you do not receive. And we continue winning. I walked out of that room knowing that everything had changed, and nothing had changed. I had the truth. I had the weapon.
Okay, guys, we got the bread and butter on that. So I'll switch to something else.
I had the knowledge, but I did not have the faith to use any of it. And that, I realized, was exactly the condition the creature wanted me in. Knowing I could be saved, but unable to reach for salvation. Aware of the war, but paralyzed from fighting. Armed, but unwilling to pull the trigger. And somewhere in the back of my mind, Sarah's voice whispered, asking me why I was still choosing emptiness when light was being offered. But I did not know how to answer her. I spent the next 2 days reviewing recordings of the sessions, reading everything I could find on quantum mechanics and dimensional theory, trying to understand what the creature had told me.
Here, the main story of the video, I saw this interesting post from Brett Weinstein. What we are witnessing is the wearing off of the blue pill. The Matrix is becoming visible. It will soon become common knowledge, the default assumption. Unfortunately, that alone does not destroy its control. We will have to do that. Welcome to Nebuchadnezzar. Interesting you mentioned Nebuchadnezzar. Is that from the Matrix itself, the ship was called the Nebuchadnezzar. Obviously, you had Nebuchadnezzar in the scriptures, and he was the king that sort of worked with God, but then he got very arrogant and forgot God, and then God turned him into an animal-like minded human where he was literally in the forest or something like that for years, and then he came back to his senses and no longer was a madman after God returned him back to sanity to humble him. Now look at this. This is kind of interesting. Is it a complete coincidence that the DOJ has completely withheld all the documents, the emails from Epstein immediately before, during, and after September, of course, in 2000?
Damn.
We don't like to make a fuss, but Redbox has gotten bigger than ever,
You can't be serious.
with even more of your favorites streaming before anywhere else.
Amazing.
No, but let's not make a scene. Fritzbox, always better, now bigger.
When we cover things, they last longer. Same goes for you. Twice as many men as women die from melanoma in Australia. which can become deadly quicker than you think. Be SunSmart. Save your skin.
Here, the main story of the video, I saw this interesting post from Brett Weinstein. What we are witnessing is the wearing off of the blue pill. The Matrix is becoming visible. It will soon become common knowledge, the default assumption. Unfortunately, that alone does not destroy its control. We will have to do that. Welcome to Nebuchadnezzar. Interesting you mentioned Nebuchadnezzar. Is that from the Matrix itself, the ship was called the Nebuchadnezzar. Obviously, you had Nebuchadnezzar in the scriptures, and he was the king that sort of worked with God, but then he got very arrogant and forgot God, and then God turned him into an animal-like minded human where he was literally in the forest or something like that for years, and then he came back to his senses and no longer was a madman after God returned him back to sanity to humble him. Now look at this. This is kind of interesting. Is it a complete coincidence that the DOJ has completely withheld all the documents, the emails from Epstein immediately before, during, and after September, of course, in 2001? We know what happened during that time. Seems to be rather curious how all those are missing, considering all the other conspiracies that have sort of been talked about in these emails, which, by the way, we do have people on X, a couple of them, that are just simply refusing to believe any of the stuff in these emails, saying, look, you don't have actual concrete evidence. I mean, we do call email speech where they admit to things evidence. Okay, there's lots of different types of evidence out there. You don't literally need to have some physical, tangible, body or something in front of you to know that something happened, right? Although there's different levels of evidence, the fact is we can see patterns. It's called pattern recognition. We can see that when they're talking about all these things that people talked about a decade ago, for example, me talking about this stuff a decade ago on YouTube, and then you find out actually they were planning, saying the exact same thing, talking about doing these things, saying, hey, I'm going to go do this. We're going to eat this jerky. You know what I mean? Obviously, you have the designer babies thing. You have all these weird things that were discovered in these files. And now we learn they're not wanting to release any of the rest of the 6 million files. But notice, on top of not wanting to release the rest of them, which I think at this point they've only released 3.5 million, there's 6 million total they claim, while at the same time, those 6 million are also missing these. So there's actually more than 6 million. But they always do these number games, numerology, whenever it comes to things like this. Obviously, the number 6, the number 33, you see these numbers all the time. And in this case, you can see here they removed 3 million extra. See that? Actually, wouldn't that be 9 million? That'd be 9 million, not 6 million. 369, that's the number of the universe. Nikola Tesla, favorite number. Everything around us is in a 369 pattern. So you can see here 3, 6, and then if you put them all together, it's 9. So I wonder if that's also a part of it as well. Just kind of weird, right? Seeing these type of things here from this Reddit post. Let's see what this says. I'm going to post the results from Gemini when prompted as below in a few comments. This should clarify a lot of questions people have as forensic data auditor specialized in 2026 Epstein Files Transparency Act repository. I have completed a cross-data set reconciliation of public-facing repository against the DOJ's February 2026 report to Congress. The audit confirms that the 1999 to 2001 canon is verified forensic reality, manifesting as a systematic removal of chronological data, despite the technical capacity to render contemporaneous.
Good night, Phil. God bless, mate.
Discontinuity audit, data set 9, finding verified gap, 25,000 entries. My audit of the master index load file for data set 9 reveals a non-sequential jump in the blah, blah, blah. So basically, they removed the files. This guy's just talking in data gibberish here, using some sort of technical garb here, but you get the idea, right? Bates stamping audit dataset 3 financials finding sequence fracture at Deutsche Bank exhibits. A hard break occurs in financial ledger sequence involving SDNY Deutsche Bank's production. Sequence proceeds normally until 1998. Next available page is 2002. So they basically skipped all of 99, 2000, and 2001. In the case of Deutsche Bank, Deutsche means German in German. German Bank, this fracture removes exactly 3 years of the transactional data, giving that this arrow aligns with the establishment of the Epstein's most complex offshore vehicles. So this again comes back to sort of when he established all these banking financial issues. Also, you have a certain event that happened smack dab in the middle of that. So this could be basically the most egregious and maybe the most direct evidence of corruption is in these 3 years that they deleted, that they don't want us to see, on top of the 2.5 million they're refusing to release on top of that. So you got literally 5.5 million files they're refusing to release that were all supposed to be released over a month ago at this point. Legally, they're already violating the law. Straight up could go to jail for what they're doing. But of course, it's the government looking after the government, and the government doesn't seem to think it has to follow any of the rules. Like you and I have to follow the rules. You and I make a little small violation of the law, and next thing you know, you're behind bars. In their case, they can do whatever they want. They can eat jerky. They can, you know what I mean? Like they can do whatever the hell they want, and they can get away with anything. That's what everyone's noticing. And then everything we were also postulating was happening is actually happening as we thought. At any rate, let's just get into this. First, let's start with Billie Eilish. Remember, she recently, about a month ago, I don't know how long, maybe it wasn't even a month, recently said that no one's illegal on stolen land. You remember that whole thing? When she was accepting her award, apparently she got a guy deported, stuck in custody in LAX for 30 hours. All he did was make a joke. He said, I'm going to move into Billie Eilish's mansion because no one's illegal on stolen land. Apparently her mansion obviously is on stolen land, stolen American Indian land. She apparently doesn't like the fact that she completely looks like a hypocrite at this point, but is doubling down on not selling her mansion to these Indians and not giving it to them either. And someone was just joking online saying, hey, I'm going to go move into her house. He obviously lives in another country. He was coming into America, spent 30 hours in custody at LAX, trying to explain to the agents that my shit posts about moving into her mansion on stolen land were a joke.
The top one says
Her lawyers seem to have actually compiled a dossier on me because the agents were asking me about my entire history as an activist opposed to the Chinese government. What the hell, man? All he did was make a joke. And she, she should stay true to her word. No one's illegal on stolen land. Well, these Indian tribe came out and said, you're on stolen land. You should move out. No one's illegal on it. And you should let this guy stay in your mansion free of charge. Billie Eilish reported him to ICE. Here's this video talking about it. Let's play this really quick.
Billie Eilish reported me to ICE and got me deported from the US.
No one is illegal on stolen land.
Honestly, I can't even be really mad because it's kind of funny.
Okay, Lynn, God bless.
I was joking online that I was going to fly.
Good to see you up and about. No.
My bags right away. No human being is illegal. It's obviously a joke. It's obviously a meme. And I get stopped by DHS and held for like 30 hours. Literally.
So what's really funny about this is I remember seeing this, I don't know, like a day or two ago, and it had a community note on it saying, no, he did not get kicked out of America. But actually, the community note is now missing. It's gone. It disappeared because he was telling the truth. He literally got kicked out of America for what he said. A mere shitpost, And now, of course, it's kind of interesting because you're seeing this happen more often with these community notes where they just straight up get it wrong. They were completely wrong in that case. You have Shia LaBeouf as well, stepping in it on Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras brawl, apparently, at a bar. He's terrorizing the city. which of course, it does look a little weird. I guess he's just drunk. It's just normal drunken behavior. I mean, well, it's not good, you know.
No, he's been acting nutty for about 10 years, Sheila Booth. That's why he lost the transfer. What is it? Those robots, Optimus Prime.
Well, obviously, it's just music playing. Can't even hear it. You can see him there without a shirt on, just apparently taunting or.
And apparently he's so nutty now he can't even get work. And and in public he makes a fool of himself like he did there.
Talking to people, look like he's trying to start a fight or something. Everyone's just like, "What are you doing, dude? You're a famous actor. Why are you acting crazy right now?" Apparently TMZ also has a video, but I don't want to.
And look at him, he's about 5'8", and the guys around him, they're black guys, and they're about 6 foot, and he's trying to bully them.
No, because they'll probably put a copyright on me if I show it to you. But apparently there's a better version of that. And he is.
Did I say 8 foot? I meant 5.8.
Not actually on the ground getting beat up by some dude. And then he keeps trying to get up, and the guy keeps hitting him and saying, "Stay down." And then he just stares at him. Shia LaBeouf's just staring at him. Some sort of death stare. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Obviously, he's drunk. Apparently, it had something to do with. I don't know if he ran out of money or. I actually have it here. Where is it at? Let me pull this back here. Oh, okay. Maybe I closed it. I think I closed it. He basically owed like some money, didn't have money or something, probably because he'd spent it all. I don't know what happened here, but something to do with money. Oh yeah, they tried to make a joke as well out of it. I don't know, man. Whatever. You get the idea. So then you got that. We also have a ton more to get into. We got Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano, another fight. They haven't fought in forever, and we haven't seen Gina Carano in this condition in a long time. Going back into the MMA fighting world, we'll get into that. We got a ton of other stuff, clavicular, some weird thing with Peter Thiel and clavicular, and we're going to get into some more stuff, some big stuff at the end of this video, including AOC. First, I'm going to mention Food Supply, 25-year shelf life. The link is in the description. They actually have, I think they still got the free package available. Let me see here. Yep, free. 4 weeks worth for free. Obviously, pay shipping costs. Go check it out. Link is in the description. They also have another option. They actually have multiple, actually. You can go to the page and pick whatever you need. There's actually multiple different options available. They also have this massive package for $3,000 covering everything, including a massive Grid Doctor 3300 solar generator and other things. All included.
Guys, Gabe just gave me a letter. I opened it up. And they want me for jury duty. It's like putting a fox in the hen house. So they've asked me for jury duty. They couldn't have checked my criminal records. I'm on the other side of these debates usually.
Go check it out. This book here, The Lost Ways, how your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity and how to go to summer, do things around the house as they did in the old days without electricity. If you didn't have it for an extended period of time, this book will be a lifesaver. $37. Get the print version. You will not be able to buy it at Walmart when the power goes out. You'll only be able to get it here for the most part. Almost no one else sells it other than me. So go check it out. Link is in the description. Also go check out my website. Jira videos. I'm going to be putting up soon here extended features of my videos over there. I'm going to be doing interviews. I actually have a studio I'm building over here. I got the cameras all set up. I had to go buy a PC, a USB card or something. Because it wasn't powerful enough to handle it. So I'm going to get that all going. I'm going to start interviewing people. And by the way, go check out my other video I'm going to put up today. Rob Skiba was featured on Candace Owens. I'm going to get into all of that as well. If you remember Rob Skiba. Anyway, let's just get back to the video. So we have here Gina Carano apparently getting back into the fighting game. She was obviously on Star Wars Mandalorian. She got fired, and then Disney had to hire her back after a lawsuit, which Elon Musk funded. Now apparently she
doesn't actually mention a date. It just says Gosford because that's the nearest district court. But they want me there as a juror there.
She's going to be fighting Ronda Rousey. She was one of the champions back in the old days.
And apparently I'm to help judge them. Yeah, that goes down well. Unless it's sex offence, I'll say not guilty.
The GWM Tech 500 plug-in hybrid is powered by hybrid intelligent four-wheel drive, offering true 4x4 capability, so you can be more tech. Go with more.
Discover a world beyond screens. Because nothing hits like
Yeah, it looks like Gina Carano's got her shape back, man. She was looking a little heavy there, and then she lost a ton of weight. I put out a tweet. I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago, or she lost a ton of weight. She lost a ton in like a year, and now she's
I'm going to show Gabe my
fights
jury request.
Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's well known for, what was it, her submission game? She's like got insane. Was it submission? I can't remember what the hell she was so good at. Because I used to watch it all the time back in the old days, the UFC. What was it? I think she was really good at submissions and stuff. If I remember correctly. Don't quote me. But at any rate, of course, Gina Carano's more stand-up. You have here Larry Wheels. He's a famous guy on YouTube, power lifter. He's been getting into arm wrestling. I love to watch arm wrestling on YouTube. Apparently out and about with Rampage Jackson, former UFC fighter. And apparently this guy who's a small Dean the Great, a small boxer. I guess he's a small thing boxer or something. I don't know. Whatever he is, he's a boxer of some sort. And he's like trying to steal Larry Wheels' girlfriend. And this is what happens. Let's just check this out. It's pretty interesting.
No, whoa.
No, we're streaming shit.
No, hey, bro, don't disrespect. Don't disrespect the king like that. You know why?
Whoa.
We got you. I know we streaming. And Honey will live with me. I know we streaming, but Honey. Come on. Hey, he's been mad respect. Hey,
We don't ask. Listen.
Everyone's trying to get it.
Oh!
Yeah.
So this is Larry Wheels. He's the power lifter right here. This guy, and this is Rampage Jackson. He used to be a former UFC champion. And I think that boxer there is supposed to be a well-known high caliber boxer, but he's really a lightweight. And as you can see there, he just got slapped silly for trying to hit on and steal Larry Wheels' wife, which I've seen a lot of this crap lately. It's really disgusting. And they call this alpha male. You're being an alpha male by stealing someone else's girl. That's not alpha male. You have Clavicular doing this as well on Valentine's Day to another guy. This guy's out at a restaurant with his girlfriend on Valentine's Day, and Clavicular steals his girlfriend. And honestly, the way Larry Wheels handled it is the right way to do it. Because this guy was begging Clavicular not to steal his girlfriend, which obviously is not a good idea to beg someone. Just slap him, dude. Just straight up slap him. That's the way to solve this whole problem. Check this out.
You're a good guy. No, you're a good guy. This is Valentine's Day.
He says that Valentine.
I agree with Tony. Just smack him. Don't even entertain their chat. Just smack them. If they're going down that road, smack them. I'm with Tony here.
Thursday ended like 5 minutes ago because it's midnight or something, so it doesn't count anymore. It's so stupid. This guy is such a loser, Clavicular. Anybody propping this guy up, which there's a lot of people propping him up, this guy's a complete joke. Steals girls from guys. He's a meth head, from what I understand. I don't know if it's allegedly a meth head. The guy can't even bench 135 pounds 3 times. Andrew Tate had him on his show. They're like going to sell merch together. It's so dumb. All this guy's known for is breaking his own jaw and making his jawline look better. That's about all he's known for. And There's guys. I mean, I knew guys in my high school that looked better than him. And were strong. I was stronger than this guy by a million miles. I could bench 265 when I was in high school, weighing 165. This guy can't even bench 135 3 times. It's a joke. And he's going around stealing guys' girlfriends. He's charging $15,000 to interview him. And interestingly,
Righto, Bobo, that's enough. You've gone after just about everyone here. That's enough, all right?
apparently we learned something new about a lot of these social media influencers. Apparently, a lot of them are funded by Peter Thiel. This is what the claim is going around. Also, I should mention real quick, by the way, on Valentine's Day, this arch in San Andrea called St. Andrew, also known as the Arch of Love, collapsed. So the Arch of Love, known for being a Valentine's arch, collapsed on Valentine's Day, which is kind of weird. I thought I'd just point that out real quick. So at any rate, you have here Clavicular here charging $15,000 for an interview. So dumb. This guy came out of nowhere. He's still a nobody in my mind. He's a complete nobody. You could find 100 guys that look just as good as this guy anywhere that are obviously going to be in far better shape than him as well. This reporter who got scammed by Clavicular for $15,000 has broken her silence, claims Clavicular, Sneeko, Andrew Tate, and Nick are all funded by Peter Thiel. They're all 100% funded. They're known as Peter Thiel's Avengers, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but let's just play this clip and see what she has to say regarding this.
It's about this. From what I saw, you asked about Peter Thiel, and then he tried to turn it back on you and saying you were funded by Peter Thiel, and then he crashed out.
And then
he crashed out because you asked about this. That's what makes me think is he funded by Peter Thiel?
And then Sneeko, and no, they 100% are funded by Peter Thiel.
All of them,
okay,
so wait, they got Nick Fuentes, Andrew Tate. They're in a little they're
the Avengers, the Peter Thiel Avengers, and it's so obvious because their whole agenda.
What makes you think Peter Thiel is funding them?
Because look at what I just said. It's you're trying to get the mind control of young men.
From what I saw,
that's interesting. And so, why is that so interesting? Because Peter Thiel has been discovered to be a good friend of Jeffrey, Epstein, and we have that in the emails now. And he was acting like a George Soros, going around trying to destroy countries and stuff to profit and make money. He wants to make money. He's making money off war. You can see this in the emails. I've actually covered it already. I covered also how there's a hacker who allegedly got into Palantir, and they found out they were doing surveillance on world leaders, and they were basically blackmailing world leaders. So basically, Peter Thiel learned from Jeffrey how to do this stuff, how to blackmail, how to control everybody. He's one of these, and of course, he's the guy that put out the Antichrist seminar claiming to be a Christian. Peter Thiel put out this Antichrist, and his entire premise of the Antichrist seminar was that if you try to block AI if you try to make rules and guardrails for AI, it's going to lead to the Antichrist. That was his argument. Entirely bogus argument, probably exactly the 180 from the truth. If you actually put guardrails on AI, then it would not lead perhaps as quickly to the Antichrist, right? So I think it's literally the opposite of what he says. And he wants AI to be used by Palantir for, of course, control of you, and I and everyone else. You have here the CEO of Palantir, CEO Carr, on drugs once again while being interviewed. This is the second time.
You need a higher purpose, and I also think you often need a lower purpose. Like the higher purpose for me.
What's the lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose. And and others.
It looks weird. Maybe he's not on drugs, but he's acting kind of weird. And he did that not like a month ago, 2 months ago. He was on I think it was on that forum, and he was acting really bizarre while he was there as well. You have the fact that they use AI targeting.
Last, what was Tucker Carlson arrested for?
And of course, Gaza. I mean, this whole thing smells sky high, and it would make sense that he would fund these people. Because I was thinking, I've been postulating in my mind what's going on with all these social media influencers, because all the ones from my time are gone. All the normal ones. Rob Skiba died some years ago. You had Jeff C. died. You had a lot of them just fall off the map. You don't ever see them anymore. Their accounts are gone. I'm one of the few left. There's a couple other of us still left. I mean, High Impact Flicks is he's still around a little bit. I think Scariest Movie Ever a little bit. RSC, Outsiders Eye. I mean, there's like 40 of us before, and they're all gone. And then all of a sudden in 2018, all these new people came on out of nowhere, and I noticed a pattern with all these people. They all work for TPUSA, or they work for a lot of these different, like I can't remember the guy's name. The one in Britain, I can't remember his name. There's an outfit, Rebel, Media. They work for lots of different organizations, right? But they're all organizations that are kind of tied into the framework, like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon also friends with Jeffrey. They're all tied into this framework that was connected to Jeffrey in one way or another. And I just noticed that a lot of these influencers, they always have problems. They're always getting into weird situations and problems. Like you just had. I was trying to think of the guy's name was Ezra. That's what his name was. But you have a couple of influencers recently. Sarah Stott getting caught cheating on her husband. I mean, like the fifth, conservative TradCon woman at this point. I mean, literally almost all of them have gotten caught at one point or another. Her with her boss, right? So you got all these different people getting caught left and right. You got Andrew Tate being caught, tons of them getting caught up in stuff. But I remember a lot of these natural, organic influencers are all gone, almost all of them, and they didn't have some of them had these problems, but a lot of them didn't. A lot of them were more normal and not weird and having all these weird problems. So I think a lot of this could be, like you see with Peter Thiel, controlling, of course, these. I'm not saying necessarily it's true what you said, but what if it is true? What if they are all funded? Because look at what Nick's been saying. He's been saying crazy stuff about Jeffrey, saying, oh, he's a good guy. Then he had, there's like tons of these people. They're all saying crazy stuff right recently. Ari, you get the idea. There's like a ton of them. You just go look online and you'll see all this crazy stuff on X particularly. AOC tries to take a swing at Secretary Rubio address in Munich. You're starting to see the ascent of the right, even in places like Munich. Okay, so this is interesting. She got apparently caught sounding like she's got a word salad going on here.
The ascent of the right, even in places like Munich. Marco Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
Which they did.
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word.
I don't think Africans were cowboys when back in Africa, but yeah, Mexicans probably were. But Spaniards actually is where we got these cowboys from, believe it or not. Check this out.
My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the conquistadors did.
Just for context.
Confused by all the products for your dog or cat? Oh, hello. Personalized product recommendations from Swaggle. Too easy. Swaggle, the Too Easy pet store. Too easy.
Need a fast cash loan without all the hassle? If you're an Australian resident over 18 in
Metrocon's turning 50 and we're celebrating. Right now, you can get celebration savings of up to...
The roots of American cowboy culture trace directly back to the Iberian Peninsula, where it is referred as vaquero. And this is what Rubio said.
The entire romance of the cowboy archetype that became synonymous with the American West. These were born in Spain.
He's 100% right, by the way.
American cowboys came from Spain.
Yeah, and she goes on and says a lot of other weird stuff. And she also starts talking against, well, there's no real thing about whites. What are whites? They don't really exist. There's either Germans or English. They're always trying to do this. Jeffrey was doing this. All of them are connected to Jeffrey in one way or another. You got our entire GOV practically is connected to it.
I probably I believe the Mexicans and descendants of Africa. Important to note how thin that foundation is.
Okay, let's explain.
Culture is changing. Culture.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think things were really good the way it was. Now you're trying to change it and make it into something that it's not. I don't think so.
They want to take this mantle of culture. At the end of the day, though, it is very thin.
Really? The European and Western culture is very thin? That's crazy, because you're up there speaking English. AOC. What does the C stand for?
AOC says whiteness is imaginary and needs to be differentiated from being English, French, or German.
See, this is what I'm talking about. They're always doing this. The only culture they do this, well, almost. They do it to other ones too a little bit, but they do it mostly to, of course, whites. You'll see it a little bit with others as well. They do it also with the Asians some. They actually do it with a lot of them, but I mean, mostly it's us, it seems like. It's very bizarre. But it makes sense because they see us all as their enemies, and they see us for some reason at the top of the list, more so.
r/conspiracy going crazy over Gizzy.
And this is about Ghislaine Maxwell. Apparently, he says Ghislaine. Is that a lot of people have different pronunciations, but apparently, it's not her in the latest video.
Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay, let me pull this up and find it. So this is the conspiracy post we got going on here. Let me see. I'll pull it up. So they think it's a different person. Is that it? This is not the same person.
Yeah, look at her nose. I noticed this as well. Her nose is very, very wide and fat here. We're seeing a lot of this weirdness like this of recent. I did a video recently on Biden and how there's multiple different versions of him apparently as well. This is not her. So some are saying perhaps she's already free as well, like Jeffrey, because some are saying Jeffrey is not dead. Because if you look at the body that they showed, the ears don't match, the nose don't match. Here you have another video where
he's right. I've seen the video of that. It's exactly right.
Ghislaine, her nose don't match, and it looks like her ears are kind of similar, but her nose is clearly not the same nose. That is not the same nose. Unless, I guess someone could have punched her in the nose. I mean, I guess that's possible, but it's not red, right? So I don't think that's her. I think that's a different person. And perhaps she's already hanging out with Jeffrey over there in the Middle East. Like, we all tricked him. Why would you want to get rid of Jeffrey in that way? Because he was an important contact for all these people, and he's one of them. And they don't want him to be on the public in a prison because then that could mean they're all implicated on their crimes that they did, right? Henry, you get the ideas. Of course, you have even Harvard professors. Meet Martin Nowak, professor at Harvard. Did you, torture? Of course, her. This is one of the things that was written in one of the emails he sent to Jeffrey. Still got a job there. I don't know if he got fired or not. Some of those guys got fired, actually. I heard one lady stood outside one college professor's room and kept holding up a sign, and they fired him. I don't know if that's the same guy or not, but the fact is, you got all this evil going on around us. They're doing all their weird, of course, rituals, hidden in plain sight, that whole thing. And you got this weird one with the Pope. I'll probably get into that in another video. But go check out my other video on Rob Skiba and Candace Owens, what she had to say about him. Kind of wonder what some of you guys think going on in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.
Okay, guys, I'm out. See you tomorrow. God bless.
beyond screens. Because nothing hits like your first time on court, where you can find your confidence or a new bestie. Get outside and hit play. Hot Shots Tennis, it's different.
It's time